After 7 exhausting years, Jihan Yu, was kicked out of my own guild. Little do they know, they have no idea what my true powers are, and they're going to regret it very soon. 7 years. That's how much time I threw into the trash serving the Kiro's guild. I was their shield, the guy who stood between life and death just so the geniuses of the team could shine. In the fight against the boss, I felt my shield crack and my bones scream for mercy while I held that monster alone, screaming for support that never came. Instead of help, I got looks of boredom. As soon as the monster was defeated and hit the ground, the masks of my so-called friends fell right along with it. Guts, the leader, discarded me right there, in the middle of the rubble and under a rain that seemed to mock my face. The treatment was cold-blooded. Kim Hyun-tae called me a failure and a dead weight. Seon mocked my weakness, and Mia Lee looked at me like I was a disgusting insect. I was expelled with a pathetic severance of 10 million won for 7 years of loyalty. You should know that 10 million won is about $7,000, 7 years of my life, and I'm basically broke. In that moment I realized, to them I was never a comrade. I was just a disposable tool, but fate has a sense of irony. At the peak of my ruin, something woke up. My vision was invaded by green grids and probability calculations, a reality hack that guided me to the small epic guild. There, the impossible happened. Sylph, an elemental wind spirit that had been dormant for 12 years, chose me. In a massive explosion of mana that lit up the skies of Buchan, I stopped being the guy who took a beating so others could win. I became a wind elementalist. Our hero just unlocked a unique ability called the elemental class. This gives him the power to communicate with special beings and use their skills. In this world, heroes with these contracts are known as elementalists. They are super rare and respected. Just one of them is strong enough to rival an entire guild. The story introduces the legends. First is Luca Harrison from England, the elementalist of mist. Next up is Malasai Soifua from Samoa, the elementalist of water. Finally, there is Abiyu Bakr from Egypt, the elementalist of sand. Each of these guys is a hero on a completely different level. And now, a new elemental hero is born. Back in the house, Kim is still on the floor after the explosion, while Jihan stands there holding the glowing green sphere. Behind him, you can see the silhouettes of the other elementalists who will appear in his journey of vengeance. Jihan's new power is revealed to be Mastery of Wind. The scene shifts to the guild building. Jihan is totally confused and asks what just happened. Sitting on the sofa, Kim explains everything. Jihan asks if he really made a contract with an elemental. She nods and confirms it. Kim elaborates on Silp H, saying the spirit controls the power of wind. She mentions that Sylph actually had a contract with her late mother, so she wonders why it picked Jihan. He hesitates and says he cannot accept this. He asks if there is a way to break the deal. Kim drops the bad news. It is impossible. Once Sylph picks a master, the bond cannot be undone. She reveals that the only way to break the contract is if the master dies. Jihan is left standing there in total shock. Jihan is feeling totally overwhelmed and asks what he is supposed to do next. Kim crosses her legs, gives him a teasing smile, and stands up. She congratulates him on officially joining Epic and casually asks if he even looked at any other guilds. The protagonist tells her straight up that he never considered anyone else. He only wanted to join Epic. Hearing this, Kim turns bright red and says he has excellent judgment. The waifu with the notable asset smiles and promises to help him master Sylph's powers. Kim is surprised because the protagonist is super eager. He says he wants to test his new powers immediately. Excited, he channels a green orb in his hand and declares it is time to hit an MA. That term refers to specific zones filled with monsters. You can see a blue dome in the background. These zones are ranked from 5 to 1 with the monsters inside matching the rank level. Kim and the protagonist head out to train and explore his potential. Holding his sword and looking up, the protagonist announces they are going to the rank 5 area in Buchan. Jihan is confident in his hacks and states that this location is perfect for testing his abilities. Kim looks pretty nervous as she looks around. He asks if something is bothering her. She sheepishly admits she has never actually trained in an MA before and is feeling scared. Jihan is shocked and asks why she kept that quiet. Kim confesses that as a guild leader, it is kind of embarrassing to admit. As they enter the monster zone, the protagonist decides he will take the lead this time. With his sword in hand and Kim clutching her staff, they walk deeper into the area. They have to navigate through debris left by past battles between heroes and monsters. Jihan asks Kim to scan the area for threats. She tells him to give her a second. Kim checks the radar and reports that the monster here is a cockatrice. She explains it was nesting in the area. Apparently, a truck overturned 2 weeks ago and scattered its offspring everywhere. Jihan draws his sword and remarks that these things are perfect targets for his new abilities. Surrounded by fallen buildings and destruction, the vibe shifts completely. This is a war zone, a place where blood spills and fear takes over. Realizing they are alone, Jihan states that since it is just the two of them, he has to play both tank and damage dealer. Kim senses something is off about the area. They keep walking until she detects movement in a nearby parking lot. A cockatrice is spotted behind a car snacking on its afternoon meal. The monster sees them, but does not drop instead. It spreads its wings wide. Both Kim and Jihan feel a huge pressure coming from the creature. They get ready for whatever comes next. Jihan quickly tells Kim to guard his back while he fights the monster head-on. The creature takes a single step and its sheer weight makes the ground tremble. It charges at them, raising a massive claw to strike, showing off its terrifying strength. Jihan raises his sword just in time to block the attack. He grins because he realizes he is no longer the same weak guy he was before. Still holding off the attack, Jihan yells out to Kim. Standing behind him, she starts casting a powerful spell. Her eyes glow as she unleashes an attack called Wind Arrow. The projectile slams into both Jihan and the cockatrice, blowing them apart and shaking the whole area. The monster crashes into the ground, cracking the earth beneath it. This really shows off Kim's incredible power. Jihan recovers and praises her impressive shot. She smirks and reveals that despite how she looks, she actually graduated first in her academy. They get distracted by the banter and almost miss a flock of extra cockatrices swooping in. Kim senses them first and screams a warning that 3 birds are attacking from behind. He spins around and his green eye glows again as his ability activates. The incoming monsters are caught in the glowing green lines of his power. A danger signal flashes above their heads. The protagonist looks at the threats and speaks the name of his skill, sampling. Then he asks the system to calculate evasive maneuvers. A window pops up. It shows the probability of dodging if he drops to the ground. As the monster charges straight at him, the only thing he does is crouch. The window confirms the success rate was 82%. Looking at his hand, he immediately starts conjuring the same green sphere as before. The name of his new skill is Haste. In a flash, the birds in the area are all taken down. He passed through them all without taking a single scratch, leaving the monster heads on the ground as trophies. With his sword raised, he looks back to see what his new abilities can actually do. Kim is totally shocked by what she just saw. She says he managed to use Sylph's abilities with perfect precision. She points out that it has been less than a day since he got these skills and wonders how this is even possible. While he stands there striking a badass pose, C asks if he is some kind of genius. The protagonist puts his sword away and calls out to say. He picks up some feathers for loot and tells her they are going to farm endlessly now. But while he is crouched down, he thinks this is a great way to test his powers. Suddenly, skill activates again. He realizes something is still wrong. He snaps around and screams at Sia to look behind her immediately. Another monster appears right behind her, but this one is much larger than the others. The tension skyrockets. The creature unleashes a powerful attack right at Sia. The sound of the strike echoes through the area. He manages to grab her just in time before she gets crushed. With Sia in his arms, safe behind the bird, the protagonist asks the waifu of airbags if she is okay. She confirms she is fine. Both of them ready their weapons, wondering why on earth that monster is even here. Jihan observes it closely and realizes this monster is a mutant. His eyes glow green again as his skill activates once more. A system interface flashes into existence, crunching the numbers on flight probability while a blinking danger sign appears right above the mutant bird. Jihan steps up to protect Siha and desperately asks her to stall the beast for just 1 minute. She is confused and asks what he is planning, but he is already sprinting towards the danger, promising to make it quick. The creature powers up its talons with strange energy. It dives straight at him, beak gaping and wings span wide. As those deadly claws come down, Jihan grips his blade and screams the signal for Siha to fire. From the back line, Siha unleashes her magic. She hits it with slow wind. The spell works, finding the monster in place just long enough for Jihan to close the distance. The bird snaps at him, trying to land a hit, but the magic makes it too sluggish to connect. Jihan comes crashing down from above, using his sword to drive the creature into the dirt, but the binding spell starts to fracture. Just as he goes for the kill, the magic shatters completely. The bird breaks free instantly, reacting fast enough to defend itself. It is a standoff. The bird opens its beak to bite, and Jihan swings his blade. In that split second, the insults from his old team echo in his head, especially the part about being deadweight. Snap. The monster's beak shuts tight on empty air. The visual interface shifts from green to an aggressive red. Jihan triggers Wind Cutter. In a blink, the bird is diced into several chunks of meat. Jihan floats gently back to the floor as the scenery shifts. The camera angle moves to a pair of legs standing nearby. We pan up to see a buff dude wearing a loud Hawaiian shirt. He looks genuinely impressed. He comments that he had no clue another elementalist was running around these parts. This is Do Hyun, the Korean Earth elementalist. The scene cuts to a totally different location, a ruined city full of rubble and gloom. The wind howls through the wreckage as a building collapses into dust. Suddenly, the ground explodes. A massive monster with glowing red eyes bursts out, followed by a pack of armored worms. Doha jumps into the fray, taunting the creatures to come get him. He sets off a massive blue energy blast, activates his provoke skill, and smashes one of the worms right as it tries to burrow into the ground. The blast hits the target dead on, triggering a loud explosion that rocks the area. But even with a direct hit, the big guy is struggling to keep the worm pinned down. He looks back over his shoulder and screams for Ayan to hurry up and strike because his grip is slipping fast. Sean Lim shifts into her combat stance. Watching the muscle head wrestle the beast, she announces that she knows exactly what to do. She locks onto the target and unleashes her spell, Chain of Thunder. A massive electric current rips through the group of worms, making them all convulse in pain at the same time. Seon Lim watches with satisfaction as the creatures twitch and then suddenly burst into tiny pieces. When the dust settles, the air is still crackling with static electricity. She grabs her staff and starts bragging. She says she honestly cannot believe the team was terrified of such weak creatures. The muscular guy is not impressed. He warns her to watch her aim next time because she almost fried him along with the monsters. She fires back, telling him to stop whining and maybe lose some weight. He rolls his eyes, says whatever, and tells her to get moving. But before they can leave, a surviving worm lunges out and captures her. She panics. She shouts for someone to cover her. Instinctively, she looks for Jihan to save her from the attack. Then the cold reality hits her. Jihan is not in the guild anymore. There is nobody there to watch her back. Just as the fear takes over, someone tears through the sky and slams into the remaining worm with a crushing blow. Seon Lim is shocked. As the dust clears, we see it was Guts, the red-haired warrior who delivered the save. He strikes a badass pose, leaning on his sword like it was nothing. Seon Lim calls out his name, sighing with relief that she is still alive. The camera pans over the battlefield, which is now littered with the corpses of worms killed by the Kuros Guild. Seon Lim and the tank are leaning against a low wall trying to catch their breath. She complains that she is totally drained. The big guy frowns and says these monsters felt different, almost like they were strong mutants. Seon Lim disagrees completely. She insists they were not mutants or anything special, just trash mobs. Suddenly, Guts steps in front of them and shuts down the excuse. He says there was nothing unusual about them. They were just giant worms, nothing more. Clenching his fists in pure rage, Guts demands an explanation. He punches the wall in frustration and asks the uncomfortable question. Why did they struggle so hard to beat such basic enemies? The big guy and Seon Lim are stuttering, trying to come up with an excuse for their performance. Suddenly, a shadow looms in the background. They turn around and look even more terrified. It is Mia Lai. She is covered head to toe in blood, looking like she just walked out of a horror movie, gripping her dagger and glaring at them. With a murderous look, she coldly announces that District 2 has been cleared. Guts spins around and barks her name. He reminds her that he specifically told her not to overdo it. Veins are popping out on his forehead as he sternly warns her that there is nobody left to protect her if she gets into trouble now. She stares right back at him and snaps that she knows the situation and does not need a lecture. The tank mutters Jihan's name and wonders where the guy ended up since nobody has seen him since he kicked out. For some reason, that triggers Guts. He throws his hands up in rage and tells them to stop being lazy. He storms off shouting back that Jihan was nothing but deadweight and they are better off without him in the squad. The scene shifts to the ruins. The protagonist is standing there radiating insane energy while cultivating his power. In the background, Sish is literally trembling. She is watching the aura pouring off him in disbelief. In her head, she is freaking out because Jihan just soloed a mutant monster. She wonders what kind of monster he is. He looks super confident in his new abilities, staring at the horizon with that signature glowing green eye. Meanwhile, someone is watching them from a distance. A stranger with a backpack is walking toward Jihan and the waifu. The stranger questions if those two really managed to kill a mutant by themselves. He gives a sinister smile, thinking this must be his lucky day. Siha, seeing the sliced-up monster remains, runs over to Jihan and asks if he is hurt. Before he can answer, Jihan collapses straight to the ground. Sihan panics and dives to catch him before he hits the dirt. She throws her staff aside and cradles him in her arms. She is pleading with him to say something, terrified that he is going to die and leave her alone in this dangerous place. She screams his name, looking deeply concerned. Suddenly, Jihan opens his eyes. With a creepy smile and dead fish eyes, he whispers that they still need to get back to endless farming. Siha instantly goes from worried to disgusted. She realizes he is fine, just obsessed. She drops him flat on the hard ground, annoyed that she actually thought he was injured. While they are chilling on the dirt, Siha points out the obvious. That is a mountain of meat, way too much for just two people to haul back. Jihan nods and admits she is right. Suddenly, the guy we saw creeping earlier steps out from behind them. He chimes in saying he can handle that problem. He pulls off his ski goggles and gives a friendly greeting to the waifu and the protagonist. Keeping his eyes closed like an anime character, he introduces himself. His name is I'm Jang, but he goes by Sashimi. He claims he runs a professional monster cleanup service. Sia looks confused. She had no idea that kind of job even existed. Jihan fills her in. He explains that these guys are pros who specialize in butchering and transporting monster loot, but Jihan is not naive. He asks Sashimi straight up, what is a cleaner doing inside a dangerous MA zone? Sashimi has an answer ready. He says his company is a startup, so he has to hustle harder than the big guys to make a profit. He asks if he can take care of all the cockatrice leftovers for them. Siha is relieved. She is just happy someone showed up at the perfect time to do the heavy lifting, but Jihan stays silent. He is suspicious. Something feels off about this guy. Sashimi leans against his bag waiting for a yes or no, unaware that Jihan is already profiling him as shady. Sashimi snaps on a pair of gloves and says he needs to inspect the goods first. He touches the dead monsters and whistles. He remarks that the quality is top tier. The cuts are clean and precise. He tells them that with this level of quality, they can sell this stuff for an excellent price. Seiya is practically vibrating with joy. She starts fantasizing about finally moving into a bigger place with that money. Sashimi flashes a malicious grin that she cannot see. He tells them they can keep the cash from the meat. But while he is talking, he quietly slides his hand over a glowing purple stone left behind by the mutant. He grabs it thinking he is slick. He plans to let them have the scraps while he steals the real prize. The narrator explains what that rock is. It is a mana crystal. These things only drop from mutants, and they are worth a literal fortune. But before he can pocket it, weird things start happening. A bunch of rocks start floating and forming around Tsushimi. He looks around in panic, wondering what the hell is going on. Siha and the protagonist drop into combat stances, totally confused by what is happening. Meanwhile, Sashimi is completely restrained by the floating rocks. He starts screaming for help, offering to hand over the mana crystal right now if they just let him go. Panic sets in as Sashimi hears a voice saying, this is exactly why he hates swindlers. The voice asks if he knows that stealing is wrong. Siha and Jihan watch in shock as the newcomer steps forward. It is the muscular guy in the Hawaiian shirt. He walks towards Sashimi, running a hand through his hair with veins bulging, and calmly states that the crystal belongs to him. Sia steps forward and asks if he is Doha from the Dice Guild, the #1 hero in the world. She asks what someone like him is doing in a place like this. Jihan is not impressed. He clutches the mana crystal tight and snaps that this item belongs to Epic, not Doha. He asks if the rank 1 hero is really planning to mug them. Doha replies that the association sent him here specifically to kill the mutant and retrieve the crystal. The two men glare at each other. Jihan's eyes start glowing green again. He asks why he should care about the association's orders. His ability activates, popping up windows to calculate his winning odds against Doha. Doha puts his hands behind his back and sighs. He says Jihan clearly misunderstood him. Jihan blinks, and the guy vanishes from plain sight. Instantly, Doha reappears behind the protagonist. He whispers that it was not a question. It was an order. Jihan gets slapped across the face. He wonders how Doha moved that fast. With zero time to react, Jihan finds himself cornered, realizing his face is about to kiss the dirt. The guy in flip-flops presses Jihan's head harder into the ground, repeating that he was not asking for permission. The protagonist looks up with a face that says he wants to fight back. Doha looks down and calls Jihan his new elementalist. Then he drives Jihan's head into the floor. Sashimi watches in horror. He thinks that out of all the heroes in the world, they just had to run into the absolute worst one. The narrator steps in to explain who this guy is. This is Doha, owner of the Dice Guild and one of the top 5 heroes in the country. He is an Earth Elementalist, the only one with that specific power. He is basically a hero with divine powers. Sihei raises her staff and yells at Jihan to move, but Do warns her immediately. He tells her it would be much smarter to stay out of this fight. He adds that one wrong move and Jihan goes from king of the hill to crushed bug. Sihei realizes she is helpless here. She pouts knowing he is not bluffing. Jihan, absolutely enraged by the humiliation, slams his hands against the ground. Jihan glares at him and asks if he seriously thinks he can kill him. The protagonist is absolutely furious. He screams that Doha is the one who is going to die here. Jihan triggers his wind bomb ability and blasts Doha backward. Doha manages to block the hit, but the force still sends him flying. As he is dragged across the ground, he wonders what the hell just happened. He was absolutely sure he had crushed the protagonist's skull into the dirt a second ago. Doha realizes the kid always has a trick up his sleeve. Jihan starts to stand up looking rough. Doha figures out how he survived the impact. Jihan summoned his elemental at the last second to absorb the blow. Not only that, but he hid the spirit to prepare for a surprise counterattack. The protagonist is battered, but he is still standing. Doha laughs and calls him an amusing guy. Suddenly, Jihan's ability activates again. A window pops up to calculate the odds of keeping this fight going. The result is terrifying. Death probability 95%. Looking at Doha, the protagonist realizes the hard truth. He poured all his mana into that last attack, and Doha does not even look scratched. Jihan accepts that rank 1 heroes are on a completely different level from everyone else. Doha dusts himself off and stands up. Jihan knows he cannot win this right now. The muscular man in flip-flops stomps the ground and calls out to his new rookie. He says the score is 1 hit each and asks who wants to start round 2. Instead of attacking, Jihan tosses the man a crystal straight at Doha. He tells him he won the fight and can keep the prize. Doha catches it but looks furious at the attitude. He asks if the kid really thinks he can just give up like that. The protagonist retorts that the crystal was what Doha wanted anyway. He says he has zero intention of fighting him. Then Jihan plays his trump card. He cites Article 38, Section 9 of the Hero Law. It states that Doha is legally obligated to accept his surrender. Doha gets annoyed and complains that things were just getting good. Suddenly, a loud noise interrupts the standoff. Doha looks back and remarks that someone arrived at the perfect time. 2 helicopters appear in the sky. Holding the crystal, Doha sighs and says the extras from his guild have finally shown up. Seiya, with her assets bouncing around, points out that those choppers belong to the Hero Association. A woman leans out of the helicopter and yells at Mr. Yoon, scolding him for wandering off alone again. The guy in flip-flops flashes the mana crystal and tells her he just had some business to handle. He adds that she is already being annoying. Doha looks at the kid and warns him that next time, nobody will be there to save him. He demands a name. The protagonist answers Jihan Yu, member of the Epic Guild. Doha repeats the guild name with pure sarcasm. Then Doha drops some advice. He tells them to surpass rank 4 and advance in the exam. Looking at the protagonist, he mentions he might actually recommend him. Jihan is confused and asks why. Doha simply says because I want to, and that is it. The helicopters lift off and leave the area. Inside the chopper, Doha asks his assistant if she heard him. He tells her to put in a recommendation for the waifu with airbags and the protagonist. The assistant argues back. She points out that the exam is in 2 days and she cannot just recommend random people. She adds that their guild has not even gone through the proper formation process yet. Then she freezes. She notices a wound on Doha's arm. She wonders how on earth he got injured. Doha just smiles and says this is going to be a lot of fun. Cut back to Epic headquarters. Sashimi is on his knees begging for his life. The duo tells him to save the apology and prepare for a beating. Sashimi pleads for just 1 minute to explain. He mentions he overheard them talking about the rank for exam. He points out the deadline is in 2 days and asks if they really think they can pass with their current equipment. He points at their gear and calls it junk, saying they are basically asking to fail. Sashimi offers a deal. He knows a secret place to upgrade their gear. He says if C and Jihan are not satisfied, they can beat him to a pulp afterwards. C and Jihan look at each other considering idea. They decide to trust him one last time and tell him to lead the way. The scene shifts to a weapons shop. Sashimi opens the door while the other two wait behind him. He looks around nervously and says there is nobody there. C gets annoyed and asks the cleaner if he tricked them again. Sashimi swears he did not. Suddenly, a voice pops up right behind them asking who they are. The mysterious person chuckles and says the shop is not open today, then asks what they want. Someone in the background points out the obvious. That guy is definitely a dwarf blacksmith. The narrator explains that dwarves are a species famous for their insane skills at the forge. They craft S-rank swords, which makes them super popular with high-level heroes. Seiha stares at the little guy. She admits she has never seen a real dwarf in her life. Jihan agrees. She turns around to thank Sashimi for actually hooking them up with a legit contact, but the cleaner pulled a disappearing act. He is already gone. The blacksmith gets offended. He insists he is not a dwarf. He calls the idea ridiculous. He claims he is a human who has lived his entire life in Korea. The duo is totally shocked to learn he is Korean. Seiha accuses him of lying. She says anyone with eyes can tell he is a dwarf. Jihan is skeptical and demands to see his ID. The smith asks if they are some kind of comedy duo, but he hands over his card. Proves he is legally not a dwarf. But looking closely at the ID, the two realize he is telling the truth. Jihan squints and asks if he is seriously only 27 years old because the photo looks nothing like him. They assume the ID must be forged. Jihan tells Seiya to call the cops. She gets angry, realizing Sashimi probably tricked them again and agrees to call the police. But the blacksmith ignores the drama. He notices something interesting and asks to see Jihan's sword for a second. Jihan asks why. The smith holds the blade and inspects it. He says it has been a long time since he saw a weapon with these specific scratches. He looks up and guesses that Jihan is a wind elementalist. Jihan is stunned and asks how he knows that. The smith says any first-class blacksmith can identify a hero's class just by looking at their gear. He adds that, unfortunately, this current sword is trash. It was not built to handle the intensity of an elemental power. The smith asks for a moment. He says he will craft the perfect weapon for an elemental. He comes back with a sword that he claims can withstand any type of power. Jihan takes the weapon. The smith reveals the sword's name is Hoyle Nam. Seiha bluntly comments that it is a terrible name for a sword. Time skips forward. The exam day arrives in the blink of an eye. Someone opens a door handle. The waifu with airbags and the protagonist arrive at the exam venue. It is packed with people. Seiha comments on the crowd. In his head, Jihan notes that it has been a long time since he took a rank for exam, especially after getting kicked out of the Kiro's guild. Suddenly, someone behind him whispers loser. As Jihan walks by, the bystanders start gossiping. They talk about his expulsion from Kiro's and cannot believe he has the nerve to try again. One person says that if they were in his shoes, they would have quit being a hero out of shame by now. Seiha leans in and whispers, asking if the crowd is trashing him. Jihan just tells her to tune it out. He thinks back to Doha and feels a wave of relief because nobody here seems to know about the crazy events in Bushian. He decides to focus and do his best. Suddenly, a voice booms out commanding everyone to shut up. The guy yells that they are making way too much noise for a bunch of losers taking a pathetic rank for exam. He says it is time for a reality check. He scans the room and calls everyone mediocre. Nobody here is special. He walks right up to Jihan, gets in his face and tells him he is not up to standard. This guy is Hyunsik Bang, also known as Shang Bang. Jihan's eyes start to glow. Inside his head, he is cursing Doha. Songbang demands to know if Jihan agrees with him. A system window pops up to calculate the pass rate. Jihan realizes Doha set him up. He only recommended him to make sure he would fail. Cut to Doha. He is chilling, opening a cookie when his assistant walks in. She confirms she sent the recommendations he asked for. He is impressed by the speed, but she looks confused. She found something weird. She asks Doha why on earth he picked Songbang to be the evaluator. Back at the exam, chaos breaks out. Si Young Bang is standing in the middle of the arena, waiting for 3 extras to attack him. He stares them down. He lectures them, saying they rushed in without a strategy or knowing his weakness. He yells that it is showtime. He sends all 3 of them flying with ease. He insults them, calling them amateurs. The 3 guys hit the floor, and Young Bang is the only one left standing. A window announces that Group 12 is disqualified. Behind a one-way mirror, 3 observers are watching. One of them shouts, "Damn." Someone questions if this is too harsh. The woman worries that at this rate, no one will pass. Then we have a guy with a defective brain named Han Suk Kim, a rank 4 evaluator. He acts arrogant, saying rank 5 heroes are basically just civilians anyway. Another evaluator, Shun-Oh, wonders what they are going to tell the bosses. Finally, a hooded man tells them to focus on the last group. His name is John Uzel. Someone mentions they finally get to see the Epic Guild in action. The arrogant guy nods. He knows this kid is the one Doha personally recommended. He points out that everyone else in the group is from the Dice Guild. Siha and the protagonist walk toward the exam room. Someone in the crowd whispers that these 2 are about to get a serious reality check. Gripping their weapons, they finally step into the arena. The evaluator with the defective brain comments that the protagonist looks tough but criticizes his lack of flexibility. He notes that Seong Bang is a squad leader for a reason. Suddenly, the system interface pops up. It welcomes them to the rank 4 exam and lays out the rules. They have 5 minutes. To pass, they just need to successfully defend themselves or make the evaluator surrender. The waifu with airbags panics. She asks how 2 rookies are supposed to land a hit on a pro. Shang Bang flares his intense aura. Jihan analyzes him, wondering how the guy fought all those groups alone without taking a single scratch. Jihan turns to Si and tells her to cover him, just like they did in the MA zone. She nods and agrees. Jihan activates his buffs. He warns her this fight is going to be way harder than the monsters. The system announces the start. Instantly, Seong Bang launches a cheap shot. He delivers a brutal kick straight to Jihan's chest. The protagonist barely manages to block it in time. Jihan complains that attacking right at the bell is unfair. Suddenly, an explosion rocks the arena. Seong is in trouble. Song Bang rushes her, aiming a punch that is about to give her some free dental surgery, but his fist hits something hard. It is not her face. It is a barrier. Song Bang is confused. He wonders how she blocked that. Then he looks to the side and realizes it wasn't her. It was Jihan protecting her from a distance. Jihan is on the ground, but he made the save. Shang Bang grins and admits that Doha's recommendation wasn't just a bad joke after all. Without hesitating, Shang Bang stomps on Jihan's chest again, then he starts running. He grips his wooden sword and charges. Jihan scrambles to his feet and they start trading blows at high speed. Shang Bang taunts him. He says the strength gap is massive. He claims that even with a wooden stick, he can crush them. Jihan's eye starts glowing. He knows he needs to create distance immediately. He triggers Wind Bomb and blasts the evaluator backward. Songbang does a smooth backflip to land safely. He clicks his tongue and remarks that Jihan is a wind magic type, which is super annoying to deal with. But Jihan is already moving. He triggers his disappearing ability and uses Hasty to instantly rematerialize right behind Xiangbang. Xiangbang senses the ambush from behind instantly. Back in the observation room, someone questions why he was picked as the evaluator, noting it makes passing nearly impossible. The assistant agrees it is bad news for Epic. Doha explains the choice. He says Seong Bang is the only swordsman alive capable of cutting through wind. In the arena, Songbang flashes a crazed smile. He triggers his skill, Rapid Attack Art, Cutting Whirlwind. Jihan is sent flying, coughing up blood all over the floor. While the evaluator stands tall, Jihan is stuck on the ground. He admits to himself that he is not moving at top speed. He is still recovering from fighting the mutant and Doha. On top of that, his crappy sword is draining way too much mana. Songbang looks down at him and asks if this is really the best he can do. Even with a recommendation from Mr. Yoon, he prepares to disqualify the protagonist. But suddenly, Se jumps in from behind. She screams for Jihan to move. Her attack blasts Songbang back, creating some space. She stands firmly in front of the protagonist, clutching her staff. She tells him she will handle the rest. She decides she cannot keep hiding behind him forever.
Seongbang scope.
He says he has no time to play with weaklings. Siha snaps back that she is not weak. She pulls her hair back to reveal her pointed ears, introducing herself as Siha Kim, an elf. Songbang yawns and says he already knew she was an elf. He shouts, asking if a mere mage thinks she can brawl with a swordsman. He unleashes a flurry of strikes at the waifu, but she closes her eyes. She declares that elves follow the path of mana. Incredibly, she dodges every single attack. Now it is her turn. She casts Cutting Wind. Shangbang calls her a fool and asks if she thinks a basic spell will work. Then he notices a magic circle forming behind him. He mocks her for trying a sneak attack, but then 2 more appear. He is confused. How can a rank 5 launch multiple attacks? He counts again. There are not just 3. She is casting 7 spells at once. Her ability locks him in place. He admits she actually managed to trap him. A massive explosion engulfs the area. Sieta shields her face from the shockwave. She is confident there is no way he could dodge that. But as the smoke clears, Xiangbong is still standing there. He dusts himself off and says it wasn't bad. He admits her plan to corner him in a confined space was actually pretty smart. But suddenly, Seongbang teleports right behind her. He whispers that she is too slow. Seiya is shocked that he managed to tank all 7 spells without going down. Xiangbong ignores her, saying he was just waiting for the protagonist to make a move. He grips his sword and mocks Jihan, saying that his arrogant attitude is going to cost him the win. But then Jihan realizes something crucial. He was wrong before. It was not the sword that was draining his energy. It was Jihan himself who was wasting mana like an amateur.
Jihan decides to switch tactics.
He focuses a small amount of energy and compresses it as tight as possible into a single point. Finally, he triggers his ultimate move, One Sword. The scene cuts to a fancy office filled with trophies. Someone knocks on the door. A young man is standing by the window and tells them to enter. A blonde man with blue eyes walks in to report on the status of Guts, the squad leader. The boss just murmurs in response. He asks how Gang Yu is adapting to the team. The blonde clarifies if he means Gang Yu Kim. The boss confirms. He wants to know about the guy who replaced Jihan after he was expelled. We are introduced to the man at the window, Young-soo Park, the owner of the Kiros Guild. The blonde admits there have been some stability issues, but they are adjusting. Jang Se confidently states that Gang Yu will soon surpass the protagonist, but the blonde looks nervous. He says he has something else to report. He drops the bomb. Jihan has advanced in the rank 4 exam. The boss is confused. He asks what that trash protagonist did to manage that, remembering he barely scraped by before. The blonde explains that apparently Doha personally recommended him. Jongsi asks him to repeat that, completely in disbelief. The scene shifts back to the arena. Jihan is standing tall looking down at Songbang. Meanwhile, the evaluator is beaten and battered on the floor. Songbang asks how a rookie like him caught Mr. Yoon's attention, then he sighs and concedes. He admits that Jihan won. He mutters that Du conveniently forgot to mention the kid was an elementalist. Later, the duo is taking a breather. The waifu smiles and asks how he mastered the elemental power so quickly. Jihan shrugs and says he has no idea. But inside, he realizes that the intense battle actually forced him to improve his control. He wonders if this was Doha's plan all along. He turns to Siha and praises her, saying she did a great job distracting the evaluator. She modestly replies it was nothing. Jihan grins and tells her the good news. They officially passed the battle evaluation. However, Jihan reminds her that the celebration is premature. They still need to pass the interview. They sit down and watch as other candidates leave the room looking dejected. Finally, someone calls out for the Epic Guild announcing they are next. One of the evaluators notes that this squad looks well prepared. Another man adds that their battle had a lot of interesting moments. Seha and Jihan walk into the room. A polite man starts speaking, saying that if nobody objects, they should get started. But immediately, someone interrupts and says they should fail them. A naysayer starts criticizing the tank. He calls Jihan arrogant and doubts his ability to protect anyone in real danger. This guy is Dangali, a mere member of the Warriors Guild. He declares it is absurd to let this squad pass. Another voice agrees, saying they should be disqualified on the spot. Someone else adds that at this rate, nobody is going to pass today. Jihan wonders why they are shouting so loud. He figures they are just trying to intimidate them to leave a lasting impression. The polite man ignores the shouting, thanks them for coming, and tells them to relax. Seha introduces them as members of Epic. Realizing he messed up the paperwork, the polite man quickly shuffles the documents in front of him. He remarks that they were the only ones who actually won their battle. He calls it impressive. Jihan sarcastically replies that it was nothing but pure luck, and Sia plays along thanking him. The dark-haired man cuts in saying that since they defeated the evaluator, there is no need for further debate. Suddenly, the ugly duckling in the panel asks Sia a weird question. He asks if she can even see with her hair in the way and suggests she tuck it behind her ears. Sia agrees and pushes her hair back. The guys are surprised. They exclaim for everyone to look at what is right in front of them. The ugly duckling shifts the vibe of the room instantly. He declares that she is an elf. Licking his lips in a creepy way, he says he thought she was a pure blood and apologizes. The dark-haired man calls him out immediately, saying his attitude is horrible and rude. The ugly duckling apologizes again, claiming it is just a bad habit. Then he asks Mr. Protagonist to stop glaring at him like he wants to kill him. Seiya tells Jihan it is fine. Jihan sighs, thinking that this creep is not the main issue right now. The ugly duckling asks if they can finally proceed with the interview. Before answering, the protagonist notes that the guy wanted exactly this kind of reaction from them. The interviewer asks if C father truly works at an institution in Kyoto researching monsters. C confirms it. She continues by stating that Epic successfully defeated the mutant cockatrice. Based on her father's research data, the confirmed answer is yes. The interviewer is stunned. He remarks that for a new guild with only 2 members, they have already achieved incredible feats. Meanwhile, the ugly duckling turns his focus to Suha. He mentions that in a decade of being a hero, he has never seen a half-elf running a guild. He narrows his eyes and says he has just one question for her. He asks a hypothetical. If a group of elves invaded Korea, whose side would she be on? Sia freezes, totally startled by the hostility. She is in shock. She asks if he can just stop dragging this out. The interviewer is confused and asks, finally, Jihan snaps. He stands up and asks if mocking people is standard procedure for the Warriors Guild. Jihan calls him out. He says the goal here wasn't to check their skills, but just to insult his guild leader. The other 2 interviewers are watching this train wreck in shock. The ugly duckling fires back, claiming that as the interviewer, he can ask whatever questions he wants. The dark-haired man tries to intervene and stop the arguing, but Jihan declares that if this guy keeps insulting his guild, they don't even care about passing anymore. They are ready to walk. The panel begs them to calm down, insisting this is not the place for a brawl. Sia leaves the room feeling totally disheartened. She is convinced they are doomed. The scene cuts to outside Epic headquarters. The waifu with the big airbags is sipping on some juice, looking sad. Jihan walks over and apologizes. He feels guilty for causing a scene and probably failing the exam. Siha tells him it is fine. She actually thanks him for standing up for her back there. She admits that nobody has ever defended her like that before in similar situations. Jihan notices she keeps refreshing a web page on her phone. He asks if she is okay and why she is torturing herself. She explains she is just curious.
Jihan apologizes again.
Suddenly, Sia says the website is releasing the results. She reads the screen. She announces the squad advancing to rank 4. They both freeze. They look at each other, unable to believe what they are seeing. Cut back to the interview room. The other judges ask the ugly duckling why he made that decision. They ask if he is sure. He says yes. He apologizes for the drama earlier. He admits he crossed the line, but claims he was just testing them because he was curious. He tosses an apple in the air and catches it. He says the name Epic. He wonders aloud how far those 2 will go. But in his thoughts, he smirks and calls Jihan and Siha a pair of arrogant brats. He continues thinking that he wants to see them climb the ranks, but it is not out of kindness. The ugly duckling vows to himself that he is going to destroy their lives later. Meanwhile, the two sitting in front of the PC are totally baffled. They wonder how on earth they actually passed. The scene shifts to the Rank 2 area in Payu City. A high-speed bus pulls up. A massive crowd of fans holding signs and journalists are waiting. The doors open and someone steps off. A reporter announces that Hyun D, the leader of the Kiro's guild squad, has arrived. He asks Mr. Kim to look toward the cameras. Someone in the crowd screams their love for Guts. Security guards struggle to hold the fans back, shouting at them to keep their distance. Guts cranks his fake charm up to the max. He smiles and says such behavior isn't necessary. He thanks everyone for gathering there today, but asks them to stay behind the line for their own safety. As Guts' squad enters the MA zone, people call him a knight and wish them good luck. But the moment Guts steps inside the barrier, the mask slips. He complains that the worms outside were making his ears bleed with all that noise. The muscular teammate notes that there were even more people than last time. Guts is annoyed and asks how they find out their location every single time. Someone behind Guts speaks up. He asks if Guts saw the girl standing by the entrance. He says he almost threw up just looking at her. This guy is introduced as Gangyu Kim. Gangyu changes the subject and asks what kind of girls Guts likes. Guts simply responds that he likes attractive ones. Gangyu grins and says he will call some pretty girls later. He invites Guts to join him at the club tonight. Seonlim cuts in. She points out that Mia Lee is standing right there and tells him to stop talking trash.
Gangyu pivots effortlessly.
He suggests that Si and Lim should come to the club too. She scoffs and asks if he really thinks she would go to a place like that. Gangyu knows exactly which buttons to push. He persuades her by saying that several famous models want to meet her. She falls for it instantly. She gets excited and says she will invite her handsome friends too. Gangyu thinks to himself how easy it is to manipulate these idiots. With a little push, they are all dancing in the palm of his hand. However, when he looks at Lee, he hits a wall. It is different with her. He cannot figure out what she is thinking. Mia Lee notices him staring and asks what is wrong. He quickly averts his gaze and says it is nothing. In his thoughts, he decides he needs to keep a very close watch on her. Suddenly, Guts hears footsteps. He turns around. 3 strangers are standing there. The one in front greets Hyun D. Kim. He says it has been a while since he last saw Guts inside an MA zone. Guts replies that it has indeed been a few months. Scarface asked about the other member. Guts replied, who? The man clarified, the one who used to carry your bag. Guts, lying as usual, claimed the guy quit and this was his replacement. Gangyu introduced himself as the squad support. Scarface asked if that was true, saying it was a real shame. Kim wanted to know why. Scarface explained that Jihan had saved them about a year ago. He said Jihan's movements were on another level and he had no idea how he did it while just carrying a bag. Scarface then said that if Jihan ever needed a guild, they should let him know because he'd be happy to have him. The two groups said goodbye and parted ways. Guts was furious. Someone asked if Jihan was really that good. Gangyu replied that he only ever heard that Jihan was deadweight who just got in the way. Gangyu added that Scarface was giving Jihan way too much credit. As Gangyu kept talking, Guts demanded his sword. A dinosaur-like monster was attacking everyone, and Guts quickly asked for his sword again. Guts set his blade on fire. He leaped toward the monster, his mind on Jihan. The scene changed. A woman said she couldn't believe it, while others realized they'd forgotten their belongings. A traffic guard declared the area was now a rank 4 zone and told everyone to evacuate immediately. One person worried about property values dropping, while another wondered if they would even have a home to return to. Jihan and Kim appeared, asking if this was the right place. Kim said it might be. Jihan confirmed this was the rank 4 area with the saber-toothed tigers. One of them, a kitty, leaped toward the two of them. Running toward the tiger, Jihan shouted for Sihu. Sihu began casting some abilities. Jihan drew his sword and kept running. The tiger was struck directly by his attack. The poor creature was split in two. Kim said she wasn't sure they were ready for a rank 4 area and thought the monsters would be stronger. Jihan replied that the mutant they fought earlier was a rare case. Kim asked how they would get the tiger's body down to the first floor, and Jihan suggested calling a cleaning service. Suddenly, someone screamed for help. Sihu said it was a civilian who hadn't evacuated and told them to hurry. But that voice sounded familiar to Jihan, like he knew the person. He appeared beside them, announcing they were heroes from the Epic Guild and asking if everything was all right. It was Sashimi, pleading for them to save him from a kitten. Kim recognized him instantly. "It's the cleanup guy," she said. The kittens were quickly dealt with. Sihu remarked how lucky it was to find him there, calling it destiny. When she asked if he agreed, Sashimi explained he just needed to use the bathroom and didn't realize they were closing the area. Jihan said he'd let it slide this time since Sashimi had gotten them good equipment. Sihu commented that Jihan was so kind-hearted. With that settled, Jihan asked why Sashimi didn't officially join their guild as the cleanup guy. Sashimi asked why it had to be him. Jihan explained that despite the past incident, he still trusted him. Sashimi assured them they could leave all the bodies to him. Sashimi then ran toward the building, repeating that they could count on him for the bodies. Saishu asked if he was going to trick them again. Jihan reassured her that he wouldn't, adding that they needed his work regardless. He then suggested they leave since everything was settled. Suddenly, someone appeared yelling for the heroes to stop killing innocent creatures. "Stop the cruelty against creatures," the person shouted. They went on, saying that creatures deserve respect and are living beings just like everyone else. They yelled even louder for everyone to respect all life. Sihu asked if these people were part of an activist group. Jahan answered that they belonged to the IUPC, an organization that advocated for the coexistence of monsters and humans. As they talked, they noted how protests around the MA areas had been increasing lately. As he who asked if Jihan agreed with this ideology, he firmly responded, "No way," calling it ridiculous. He questioned if they would still stand by their argument even after seeing heroes get killed by the monsters they defend. A security guard told the group they couldn't enter this area, while a bystander told the heroes to hurry up and save their friends, the creatures. The guard yelled that they had managed to break through the barrier. The bystanders exclaimed, "Here come the heroes. Don't let them escape." Sihu and Jihan found themselves surrounded by activists. Jihan wondered what on earth these people were doing. A frantic protester screamed for everyone to look at the creatures. She demanded to know how heroes could be so heartless. Another activist apologized to the monster, saying that heroes who act like murderers have no right to call themselves saviors. Jihan couldn't grasp why the civilians were so angry, and hoped the association would handle the situation. Just then, Doha showed up, telling them all to get out of his way. He asked if they were finished with their business with the kid. Jihan spun around and asked, "Who the hell are you?" Doha replied with a smirk, "Me? I'm the guy you despise the most." With a flick of his wrist, Doha summoned a massive wall of earth. He grinned at Jihan and asked, "So what are you going to do now?" After raising the wall, Doha stood there silently watching everyone. Some people called him the Earth Dragon. To others, he was just a clown. Over in the West, they knew him as the Earthquake Man. Doha let out a fraction of his power, declaring that he liked to be called Bad Boy. A terrified bystander gasped, "It's the Bad Boy Doha Yun." Another person wondered what the number 1 ranked hero was doing here. Jihan muttered to himself, "Why is it always this guy? He just loves appearing out of thin air." Jihan wondered if Doha had anything better to do with his time. Doha then shouted for everyone to leave immediately or else go to hell. He called out a name and a sudden explosion rocked the area. A dragon materialized right next to Doha. Jihan was stunned. "What is that?" he thought. "Is that actually an elemental?" The creature was Mumu, a Terra elemental. Doha ordered his dragon to restrain everyone. Whips made of earth shot out towards the crowd. Every single protester was caught in their grasp. They were lifted off the ground one after another. Jihan told Sihu they needed to get out of there, but someone pointed out that a certified hero can't just flee. Sihu complained that their hands were tied. Jihan could only marvel at Doha's insane power, capturing all those people without a single injury. Doha then apologized for keeping them waiting. He mentioned hearing that Jihan and Sihu had passed the rank 4 exam. The comment made Jihan think back to his fight with that monster. Snapping out of it, Jihan thanked Doha, sarcastically calling him a merciful evaluator. Doha just laughed, admitting Bang was intense but a good person deep down. Jihan shot back, questioning the intense part since Bang had nearly killed them. But Doha explained he knew that surviving the ordeal would make them stronger. This led him to wonder which of the two was more powerful. Jihan immediately asked if Doha had come all this way just to fight him. Just then, another voice cut in asking if he was Doha. Onlookers started questioning why he was in a rank 4 area with that particular squad. Sihu pointed out that the newcomers were from other guilds. Doha sighed, saying they were drawing too much attention and needed to move. The scene changed to a busy construction site filled with workers. One of the workers greeted Doha and asked why he wasn't working. Doha just said he was handling something. Jihan realized this must be the Dice Guild's base of operations, and it was bustling with people. Doha explained they were expanding the training grounds and apologized for the noise. Jihan told him it was fine. Soon, they were at the guild building itself. The three of them stepped inside. Jihan commented on how quiet it was, feeling more like a coffee shop than a guild headquarters. He noted that all the noise from the construction outside had vanished. Sihu, however, was amazed. She said it took an incredible amount of mana to shield a building so completely, but that was expected from a major guild. When Jihan asked if it was really that powerful, she confirmed it, estimating the barrier's maintenance cost at around 20 billion won. Jihan wondered aloud if a guild could even make that much money. A woman suddenly appeared, thanking them for noticing her work. She asked Sihu if she was interested in mana barriers, complimenting her on such an accurate cost estimate. The woman introduced herself as Jaekyung Park, the vice leader of the Dice Guild. Jihan was surprised, asking if she was really the vice leader. Sihu added that she'd mistaken Jaekyung for an assistant. Do asked Jaekyung if she remembered the two of them and told her to book a meeting room. Jaekyung Park agreed, but then demanded to know where Do had been, pointing out he'd missed all his appointments. As she pinched his cheek, Do asked what she thought she was doing to the guildmaster. She shot back that if he wanted respect, he should stop acting like a kid. Jihan muttered that the two of them were louder than the construction site. After their bickering ended, Jihan and Sihu followed Doha to the meeting room. Doha got right down to business, asking them why they thought he'd brought them here. Jihan guessed it had something to do with his elemental. Doha confirmed he was right. At that moment, a bright light started to glow. A small fox-like dog appeared and let out a meow. Doha introduced his elemental partner, Mumu. He then asked if they recognized the creature from when he dealt with the protesters. Jihan couldn't believe it. He asked if this tiny dog was the same thing that had turned into a giant dragon. Mumu complained that it was busy helping with construction, but Doha promised the meeting would be quick. Mumu then turned and asked why there were guests. Jihan offered a greeting. Sihu, however, was completely charmed by the little dog, while Jihan just wondered what it was even doing. Doha then asked Jihan to summon his own elemental, and Jihan agreed. A glowing green sphere appeared at Jihan's call. As soon as it materialized, it drifted over to the small dog. Doha remarked that he knew Jihan's elemental was wind-based and asked what it was called. Jihan introduced the elemental as Sylph. Doha then explained that Sylph was the reason for this meeting. He pointed out that for his entire 17 years as an elementalist, Mumu was the only one ever discovered in Korea. Doha added that he'd looked over Jihan's records and saw no mention of him being an elementalist. Because of this, Doha figured the moment Jihan became an elementalist must have been when he joined Epic. But Doha said that timeline made no sense, and he demanded Jihan explain how he managed to get a contract with the wind elemental. Just as Jihan was about to speak, Sihu stepped forward, asking if she could tell the story instead. She revealed that Sylph had belonged to someone else before. When Doha asked who, Sihu explained it was her mother, Erna, who was the last person to have a contract with Sylphie. Doha seemed to accept her answer. He admitted he never expected Jihan to have a contract with Erna's elemental, leaving him speechless. Doha thought to himself that elementals were supposed to disappear when their owners died, but apparently he was mistaken. Resting his hand on his chin, Doha decided that even with his doubts, it no longer mattered. So Doha announced he would now explain the real reason for calling them here. Sihu said she thought it was to learn about Sylph. Doha confirmed that was part of it. But there were two important things to discuss, and Jihan also asked what he meant. Doha promised to be direct. First, the leaders of the Dice Guild wanted to buy Epic. A shocked Sihu immediately asked why. Doha then made his offer, 20 billion won in exchange for total control of Epic. Furious, Sihu shot to her feet and demanded to know if he was serious. Doha assured her he was and even said he could raise the price. He told them they had a choice, either stay a two-person guild or let him help them expand and bring in new members. As part of the deal, Doha promised to personally teach Jihan how to control the elemental. He also guaranteed he wouldn't interfere with their squad's activities. Doha then asked Jihan for his thoughts, pointing out how ideal this would be for him. Overwhelmed, Isu admitted the offer was generous, but she was completely caught off guard. Doha suggests they take their time to consider it, but before he can ask for a quick answer, Jihan cuts him off saying he won't accept. Doha is stunned by the response. Jihan states firmly that Epic is not for sale, not now and not ever, leaving Saihu completely speechless. Suddenly, a bag is thrown to the ground. Sashimi appears where the activists are being held, asking what on earth happened. He announces that he finished his part of the job but can't seem to find Jihan. Sashimi says excitedly that he was eager to share what he'd accomplished with Jihan. The scene then shifts back to the negotiation. Jihan tells Doha he can double the offer as much as he wants, but it still wouldn't be enough. He declares that just like Dice, Epic will become a huge guild in the future. Hearing this, Doha's expression immediately sours. Then Saihu, who had been silent, finally speaks, asking Jihan who gave him the right to make that decision. As Saihu cries and grabs at Jihan, Doha bursts out laughing, and his laughter only grows louder. After his fit, Doha says that such ambition is far too big for a two-person guild. He admits he didn't expect Jihan to be so arrogant. Jihan turns to leave the room stating that he has faith in their guild. Du adjusts his glasses and questions him. Faith? He remarks that Jihan talks as if the deal is already settled, adding that he finds him truly entertaining. With that, Du withdraws his offer. Saihu tries to remind him that she's the guild leader, but unfortunately, she is cut off. Dasha calls for his assistance saying he's returning something that belongs to them. He asks if they remember a certain stone, revealing the mana crystal from the mutant they fought earlier. Ji asks why Doha is giving the crystal back. Doha explains that the association finished its research and he had planned to return it after acquiring the guild. Instead, he says he'll give it back now as a gesture between two strong elementalists. Jihan thanks him. As he begins to say that's enough, he is interrupted. Sylph, who had been with the small dog, flies directly toward the mana crystal and collides with it. A quick flash of light fills the room. Standing behind Jihan, Doha explains that mana crystals are used to evolve elementals. He advises Hun to collect more if he wants to become stronger. Doha adds that the more crystals he gathers, the closer Sea Elf will get to being able to materialize. Hun asked if it was true, if Sea Elf could actually get a physical body. The scene then cuts to the Korean branch of the IUPC. A telemarketing operator thanks a customer for calling and asks how she can be of service. Her tone quickly changes to shock. She asks the caller to repeat if their pet cat really turned into a creature. She tells them not to worry, promising to send a team to capture the transformed animal. In the background, a man asks how long a promotional poster will take, and another voice replies it should be about 3 hours. Two women are talking nearby, one asking about the next volunteer event. Her friend replies that it's probably on the 21st. The woman in blue complains that an old lady hugged her last time, and it made her uncomfortable. The woman in gray says it can be nice sometimes. As they chat in front of a news broadcast, the woman in blue wishes more people would see the good things they do. She feels certain that given enough time, things will change in a big way. She finishes by saying that every person who acknowledges their efforts gives her life new meaning. Suddenly, roar startles both of them. The sounds of claws and growls follow. The woman in blue says, "Darling," a saber-toothed tiger appears, and they realize it's feeding time. The woman in gray says she remembered just in time. The woman in blue asks if she should go buy food, but her friend says one serving is enough and nothing too heavy. The woman in blue walks to a cabinet to check for anything inside. After opening the cabinet, which is really a cage, a tied-up person is revealed. The woman in blue greets them. She remarks that she can't believe the old lady is still alive and notes her resilience, while the other woman mutters about how annoying they are. She opens a door and throws the elderly lady into the tiger's cage. The sobbing lady hears the women telling the tiger to enjoy its meal. The tiger approaches the lady and devours her completely, leaving nothing behind. The woman in blue comments on how cute the tiger is and tells it to eat well. She then wonders if one is really enough, but the woman in gray says no, that will do. They then hear something moving behind them. A car pulls up outside, and the woman in blue says it looks like the managers are here. A stylish man steps out of the car, sets the alarm, and greets everyone. His name is My Sewing Lim, and he's the manager of this IUPC branch. The others greet him, and someone asks how his trip went. He replies that no one would believe the beautiful creatures he managed to capture. One of them calls him the best. My Sewing Lim then asks for their attention, saying he has good news. He opens a briefcase and announces that they have finally completed the project. My Sewing Lim pulls out a pistol filled with a suspicious liquid, declaring the prototype a success. Someone asks if it's what they're all thinking. My Sewing Lim then brings up the cockatrice that escaped in Buchan. He explains their first attempt to create a mutant with a mana crystal failed because the creature's body just wasn't strong enough. On top of that, the mutant was nearly impossible to control. My Sewing Lim continues, saying this time will be different as he turns his gaze to the tiger. He shoots the animal and declares he will make it into something precious. An explosion of energy erupts from the tiger's cage. The creature he just shot now radiates in intense power. A satisfied smile spreads across My Sewing Lim's face. One person starts clapping, and the applause spreads through the group. Staring at his new creation, he remarks that he never thought he would witness something so beautiful. The scene then shifts to Incheon, a rank 4 area. People are walking around peacefully, but then Suhu and Jihan appear. Suhu notes that this area has a barrier, unlike the last one. Jihan explains they figured it would take too long to handle the tigers, especially after the IUPC incident. As Jihan talks about their luck in finding another crystal, Sashimi shows up right behind him. Looking worn out, Sashimi asks where Jihan was yesterday. Saihu is startled and warns Jihan, but he just greets Sashimi casually. Sashimi complains that Jihan made him carry all the tigers alone and then just disappeared. Jihan apologizes, but Sashimi retorts, asking if that's all he has to say. Suddenly, Sashimi starts trembling violently. Then, just as suddenly, he becomes hysterical. Saihu asks what's wrong with him, saying he's acting like a lunatic. Holding up his phone, Sashimi tells them to stay calm when they see what he has to show them. After one look, both of them start screaming like maniacs. A thrilled Sashimi announces that the tigers and the cockatrice sold out immediately. Saihu, shocked by all the zeros on the screen, exclaims that it's 500 million won. Sashimi, standing behind them, calls it the grand prize. Saihu drops to her knees, admitting she made the right decision hiring him. Sashimi confidently says that anything he cleans up is guaranteed to turn a profit. After their celebration, Sashimi mentions it's time to revisit their contract and demands a 10% fee. Jihan cuts him off, saying it will be 4%, and Sashimi protests. Still arguing, Sashimi insists that even in the cleanup business, there are certain policies to follow. Jihan just kept shouting, 4%. They went back and forth with Sashimi offering 8%, but Jihan shot back with 4%. Sashimi accused him of daylight robbery, but Jihan just declared, alright, 4% it is. A baffled Sashimi asked why he was arguing with himself. A voice of reason cut in, asking what the two fools were up to. Then someone in the background muttered, there she is again. The person turned around, curious about who they meant. First, a small paw came into view. Then a very unusual-looking rat appeared. Saihu's face fell when she realized it was just a chinchilla. People started whispering, asking if that was one of those tamers. Someone else chimed in, wondering how they hadn't seen her before, and identified her as Yuri Min from the Snowflake Guild. The crowd mentioned she was famous for hunting saber-toothed tigers. When someone asked why, the answer was that nobody knew. Meanwhile, Yuri walked right past the three fools from the Epic Guild. Saihu, on the other hand, seemed to be developing a small crush on Yuri Min. Jihan told them to stop wasting time and get to the MA. He explained that the Tamir was a saber-toothed tiger specialist. If they didn't move, her chinchilla would snatch up all the tigers. As Jihan was talking, the chinchilla suddenly popped up right behind him. He noticed it and asked, what the hell is this thing doing behind me? The creature opened its mouth wide, baring its teeth. Saihu and Sashimi yelled for him to move, but Jihan was calm, telling them not to worry because it wouldn't hurt him. Just then, a window popped up, calculating the odds of the chinchilla attacking him. Sashimi and Saihu were completely disgusted by what they were seeing. The chinchilla's owner commented how strange its behavior was, saying it almost never showed interest in anyone. The woman then introduced herself. She said it was a pleasure to meet them, and that her name was Yuri Min from the Snowflake Guild. Then it was Jihan's turn to speak. He introduced himself as Ji-Han-yu from Epic and pointed out the woman next to him as Epic's leader, Si-Hoo Kim. Yuri asked if Ji-Han had a hamster or any other rodents at home. Ji-Han told her he didn't own any pets. Yuri found her chinchilla's reaction very unusual and figured there had to be a reason for it. Just then, Tsushimi called out to her. He grabbed Yuri's hand and began his own introduction, telling her his name was Tsushimi and that he worked for Monster Cleanup Services. Tsushimi told her to call him if she ever needed a cleanup crew, but she replied that it was fine. He assured her there was no need to worry. Just then, the chinchilla popped up behind him looking angry. A few bystanders had gathered in the background to watch the scene. Poor Tsushimi was being ignored. The onlookers commented that they had never seen Yuri talking to people from another guild and that she was usually unfriendly. The conversation then shifted as they asked if those two weren't the ones who were with Doha earlier. Ji-Han turned his back, noting that people were starting to notice them. Yuri realized she had drawn a lot of attention and apologized. As she walked away, she wished the three of them good luck and Ji-Han did the same. In his thoughts, however, Ji-Han considered Yuri and her guild. He knew it had been almost 3 years since there was any news about Snowflake. With their reputation, they should have been rank 3. He wondered why she was still stuck in rank 4, but admitted that guessing wasn't his job. Ji-Han then called to Sishi that they should go inside, and she agreed. He told the cleanup guy not to disappear, and Tsushimi said, okay. The scene then shifted to a building named Greenscape. The two of them entered. Saishir mentioned that something felt off. They had already reached the 5th floor without encountering a single monster. Ji-Han suggested that maybe they took too long and other guilds had already passed through. Standing before the staircase, Ji-Han said they would have to search each floor as they went up. Sai asked why they didn't just take the elevator and Ji-Han guessed it might not be working. So the two started climbing. Sae complained that he made a mage climb stairs, to which Ji-Han replied that every mage should work on their stamina. As they ascended, a man appeared asking who was there. He demanded to know who they were. His name was Gaiman, a member of the Knife Guild. Gaiman asked if they missed the sign on the 1st floor, saying the building was protected by the Knife Guild from floors 207 to 209. Seihi, furious, said they couldn't just decide things like that, but Gaiman replied that he couldn't deal with smaller guilds. Gaiman explained it was an unspoken rule, allowing them to claim these areas to secure the best MAS. He added that when a large guild claims a location, lower-ranking guilds don't have much choice. He said this applied to a 2-member guild like theirs and told them to leave immediately. Ji-Han responded that no. They were the ones who would be leaving. Ji-Han declared he would report them because everyone knows it's illegal to claim areas. Gaiman told him to shut the hell up, asking if Ji-Han really thought the association would do anything. Ji-Han asked if that was a threat as he sized up the group around him. He counted a tank, 2 warriors, and a mage. The staircase was narrow, he thought, which would make it difficult for all 4 of them to attack him at once. He triggered his ability, weighing his chances of winning. Another man scoffed, asking what Ji-Han would do about it. As they faced off, a window appeared, showing an 80% success rate. Gaiman grew confused, wondering why Ji-Han wasn't making a move. Gaiman turned to his mage and demanded to know why he was just standing there, ordering him to help. The mage replied that he knew and was about to attack. At that moment, Ji-Han shouted for Si-Hoo. She called back that she was ready, already casting a spell. Together, they launched their attacks, one of water and one of fire. The spells collided, creating a massive explosion of energy. The blast tore through the building, blowing a hole right through the wall. Ji-Han and Si-Hoo immediately began sprinting up the stairs as fast as they could. The other men yelled that they were running away. Si-Hoo cast another spell at them. A ring of fire erupted around the men, leaving them trapped and confused. Meanwhile, Ji-Han leaped toward Guy, ready to land a blow. Guy blocked Ji-Han's attack. He questioned what someone so weak was doing in a rank 4 area. Ji-Han replied that Guy talked too much and pointed out that his entire body was exposed. Guy was struck hard and fell to the ground. He ended up right back where he started. From the floor, he asked if the two of them really thought they could get away with this, threatening them with his guild's retaliation. Ji-Han cut him off, slamming his sword into the ground right next to Guy's head. He then asked what his guild could possibly do for a dead man. A new figure appeared between them, telling Guy that his group wasn't strong enough to fight them. Si-Hoo asked if she should finish it right there. One of the trapped men wondered how she could cast so many spells and who these two even were. 2 more men appeared, one yelling at the other to hurry and put out the fire, but his partner said he wasn't good with water magic. A bald man complained that they hadn't even seen a tiger yet and were already wasting energy on this nonsense. As he said this, he turned to look behind him. A woman then used a water spell to extinguish the flames. The woman announced the fire was finally out. But when she turned, a mutant tiger was devouring the bald bystander. He screamed for help from inside the beast's jaws. After seeing the gruesome sight, the woman fled in terror. Sihu and Jihan heard the screams, which seemed to come from the emergency stairs. She asked if it could be a saber-toothed tiger, but Jihan said the screams were too loud for that. It had to be something else. He then activated his abilities. A system window appeared, calculating his chances of survival. At that exact moment, the tiger emerged right in front of them, covered in the blood of its victim. The creature roared. The horrifying saber-toothed tiger roared again, aiming it directly at Jihan and Sihu. The window updated, showing a survival chance of only 0.5%. The mutant then charged straight for them. Saishu asked if that was a tiger, and Jihan confirmed it was an extremely powerful mutant. Jihan noted that he had never seen a mutant like this one. It was different from all the others. Meanwhile, Guy and the other bystander were frozen in shock, wondering what that thing was. Jihan quickly turned to them, saying he needed their help to fight it. But Guy was already running away, yelling that it was useless and that even 4 of them couldn't take it down. Jihan called them cowards. He had to admit to himself that he and Sihu alone were not enough to defeat this mutant. The monster stomped on the ground, shattering it. As it rushed toward them, Jihan warned Sihu that it was coming. He quickly drew his sword. At the very last moment, he barely blocked the mutant's attack. Jihan realized how strong it was. His sword would have broken if not for the elemental power within it. He decided he had to end this quickly with a single powerful strike. While he was lost in thought, the mutant swung its razor-sharp claws at him, but Sihu cast her spell just in time to save Jihan. She told him this was his chance and to attack with all his strength. He struck, using his skill to channel his elemental's power into his sword. The attack had no effect on the mutant. The creature retaliated, slamming Jihan in the head and sending him flying while he coughed up blood. Jihan groaned, saying he didn't even see that hit coming. Sihu tried to attack the monster with her wind arrow ability. The mutant noticed the arrows heading its way and effortlessly dodged every single one she created. Sihu was out of options with no way to block the incoming attack. At that exact moment, Yuri Min and her chinchilla showed up to save them. The chinchilla immediately charged the mutant. It rescued Sihu just in time, and the 2 creatures began to clash. The chinchilla actually managed to throw the massive tiger aside. Looking at the crater it left, Sihu said the little guy had saved her at the last second. Yuri Min explained that she heard an explosion nearby, but never expected to find them. After greeting them again, Sihu simply noted that it was Yuri Min from Snowflake. Yuri then looked over at Jihan and said he was in terrible shape. She told Sihu to grab Jihan and get out of there, promising to handle the mutant herself. Sihu suggested they should call for other heroes instead. But Yuri Min reassured her it was fine, claiming no saber-toothed tiger was a match for her. Sihu noticed a distinct change in Yuri's eyes and her tone of voice. With that, Yuri leaped off the building heading straight for the mutant. Meanwhile, the chinchilla was already putting immense pressure on the tiger. The tiger took a punch so powerful it spat blood. Another flurry of blows landed and more blood flew. Yuri, still falling through the air, called out to Chilla, who instantly looked up at her. Pointing at the mutant, Yuri cast a spell that shot directly at the tiger. Chilla, who had been pummeling the beast, quickly stepped aside, letting Yuri's attack hit its target. The tiger was encased in ice for a few moments, but it eventually shattered the prison and broke free. Yuri landed near Chilla and remarked that the mutant could still move even after her attack. This one was on a whole other level. The mutant then charged straight toward them. Once again, Yuri fired another ice attack. This time, the spell was faster, but it still wasn't enough to hit the mutant, which dodged everything. Even as the tiger advanced, Yuri knew it had to have a weakness somewhere. The mutant tiger suddenly collapsed after being struck in the knee joint. Yuri stated that it wouldn't be able to move for quite some time. She explained that saber-toothed tigers possess extraordinary physical strength. She added that their flexibility is a natural trait, but when their muscles contract from the cold, their joints can't support their own weight. Yuri then declared to the tiger that the fight was over, and its mistake was letting the ice arrows hit it. Watching from above, Sihu commented on how amazing Yuri was and how they never stood a chance. The battered Jihan called out to Sihu, who went to him. He told her she needed to go help Yuri, but Sihu replied that there was no need since Yuri had already defeated the saber-toothed tiger. Jihan, however, disagreed, saying the fight was far from over. He then activated his ability and began calculating Yuri's chances of victory. Ji-hoon was certain Yuri was in deep trouble even as she moved in for the final blow. Yuri promised the tiger a quick end, but suddenly, the creature shot back to its feet. Enraged, more saber-toothed tigers appeared from all sides. A system window popped up, her success rate now plummeting below 10%. The entire pack charged straight for Yuri, intent on tearing her apart. From his vantage point, Ji-hun saw that every single tiger was now in one place. He knew it was now or never. They were out of options. Ji-hun turned to Sihu and asked if she could use levitation to get them to the ground. She said yes, but admitted she wasn't very good at it. Ji-hun pulled her into an embrace, telling her to use skill when he gave the word. A blush crept onto her face as she said his name. Holding a glowing green sphere, Ji-hoon stated that this was the only way. And with that, he leaped from the roof. With Si-hoon in his arms, Ji-hoon activated his haste ability. While they plummeted, Sihu begged him to wait, asking him to at least tell her the plan. The saber-toothed tigers below looked up, ready to pounce on them midair. But then, a barrage of spells rained down on the pack. The one casting them was Yuri Min. Her attention was diverted, allowing a tiger to sneak up from behind. Just in the nick of time, Chilla jumped in and saved her. Now both Chilla and Yuri Min were completely encircled by the beasts. Yuri was drained from the fight, complaining that the tigers were endless. Surrounded by the swarm, she knew she had to find the mutant fast before it could attack or regenerate. That's when she heard a strange sound from overhead. The noise was, of course, the two fools who had just jumped off the building. Ji-hoon yelled for Sihu to use her levitation and to do it now. She immediately complied. Sihu activated her levitation. Ji-hun felt their descent slow, but he realized it wasn't enough to stop them completely. He had no choice but to use his own mana to halt their fall, even though he knew he should be saving it. Sihu asked if he had managed it. Ji-hoon readied his attack, saying he was locked onto the perfect spot. All he had to do, he said, was slice through it just like he did with the mutant cockatrice. He then unleashed a devastating attack on every saber-toothed tiger he could see. The ground around them erupted in destruction. And just like that, the two of them were on the ground, safe. But Ji-hun was completely spent after using so much mana. Yuri Min rushed over to them, furious, and reminded them she had told them to stay away. Ji-hun shot back, asking if that was any way to thank the people who just came to help. Yuri insisted she never needed their help and had everything under control. Ji-hun then asked what her deal was with these tigers anyway. Chilla shot Ji-hun an angry glare, a look that Sihu did not miss. Sihu yelled that the attack missed some of the tigers and they needed to be careful. Ji-hun pointed out that these weren't the same tigers from before. It seemed the mutant was somehow summoning more of them into the fight. Yuri Min said its joints should have been totally wrecked. Ji-hun guessed it must have some kind of regeneration ability. She shot back that she'd never seen a power like that. For just a second, her mind drifted to a memory from long ago. A girl covered in what looked like ketchup was telling her to get away. While Yurimin was lost in thought, Ji-hun yelled that the mutant was already badly damaged and they could end this fast. But as he said it, Yurimin suddenly charged straight for the creature. Ji-hun shouted her name, but she didn't seem to hear him and just kept going. He couldn't figure out why she'd suddenly gone crazy and rushed in alone. Turning back, Ji-hun asked Sihu for cover and she agreed immediately. The tigers swarmed towards Yurimin. She unleashed her spells, taking down a whole pack of them. Now face to face with the mutant, she started casting again. Another tiger lunged, trying to grab her by the foot. Yurimin yelled for it to get out of her way and threw it aside like a doll. But in that split second, with her guard down, the mutant rushed in, claws extended. She saw that the mutant had regenerated at an unbelievable speed. The roaring creature kept swiping at her. At the same time, Ji-hun launched his own attack, remarking that eating her probably wasn't a great idea. He quipped that cold food might give the mutant a stomachache. Without wasting a moment, Ji-hun closed the distance and hammered the creature with more attacks. This time, his strike seemed to land and do real damage. Chilla saw her chance and jumped in to help Ji-hun, and Sihu followed her lead. As Jihan charged the mutant for the final blow, he yelled that this was the end. But suddenly, Yuri jumped right in front of him, telling him not to kill it. Jihan managed to stop his attack just in time. He demanded to know what she was doing, insisting he had to strike before it could regenerate. She explained that she had to capture it alive, that killing it was not an option. Jihan asked if that was really her plan and told her to move. Then he asked her why. Why was she doing this? But while they were arguing, the mutant got back on its feet. It lunged straight for Yurimin, ready to tear her apart. Sihu and Jihan could only stand there, frozen, wondering what on earth she was thinking. The mutant roared again, and Sihu warned that every roar summoned more tigers. Jihan's mind raced, trying to come up with a plan now that he was completely out of mana. From the background, a voice calls the scene pathetic, and the speaker uses a gravity ability. Jihan immediately demands to know who it is. The person replies that Jihan is still an amateur, a voice he instantly recognizes. The speaker continues, saying that even though Jihan passed the rank 4 exam, he's still weak and a disappointment. Another bystander remarks that he isn't such an impressive prodigy after all, but a young woman says she's impressed he held out for so long. The newcomers are Sukwin's crew, and he tells them to stop talking and finish things quickly. The man behind the mutant's creation says he expected this, guessing they must be the level 3 Dice Guild crew. Misoyan Lim then says he thought they would at least send a level 1 squad. Misoyan Lim's assistant asks for their next move, and he replies that they have no choice but to retreat. He adds that this wasn't a total loss despite the mana crystals spreading throughout the body in the last few minutes. Misoyan Lim remarks on how impressive and fascinating the mana crystal's power is. In the end, he orders them to continue with the original plan. Sukwin's crew witnesses the grotesque scene and asks what is happening to the mutant. Sukian says it just means more work for the hero department. Jihan then appears being carried by others who came along. They head towards Sihu, but she insists she doesn't need help and is fine. Chilla and Euromon were standing still when they sensed a different presence. One of them looks around to see what it is. The scene changes, jumping forward 1 week. Jihan is holding his phone where the day's news is displayed. Someone asks what happened inside. Sashimi appears, saying the MA they were in is all over the news and asks why Jihan is so beat up. Jihan replies that civilians can't know. Sashimi insists he deserves to know since they're partners. Jihan thinks to himself that he never should have hired him. This then explained what happened that day. 8 heroes died in that MA. The hero department had completely underestimated the number of saber-toothed tigers. The mutant's appearance triggered an infestation of the tigers. The result was an unprecedented tragedy, and Jihan says he's felt bad ever since. He adds that everything felt planned, like it wasn't just a random incident and that the mutant was different from all the others. He then says, maybe he shouldn't dwell on it since the hero department will release the investigation results. Tsushimi comments that he hasn't seen Sihu today. To this, Jihan replies that she went to take care of some things and will be back soon. Just then a phone starts to ring. Tsushimi notes that he's never seen that particular phone get a call before. Jihan explains it's the line used to communicate with all the guild's heroes. But why would someone be calling Epic on it? He answers saying, this is Epic. How can I help? The voice on the other end cuts him off with a cheerful. She introduces herself as Yuri Min from Snowflake. Jihan is taken aback, asking if it's really her, while Tsushimi looks on in shock. Jihan then asks what he owes the call to. Sashimi jokingly asks someone to pass the popcorn. Yurimin apologizes for using this line, saying it was her only option to contact him, but Jihan says it's fine. He then asks how her injuries are, and she replies that they've almost completely healed. She asks how he's feeling, and he tells her he's fine. He can sense from her uneasy tone that something is off. He doubts she would use this line just to check on him. Then she says what she's about to say is sudden, but she asks if they could go on a date today. Sashimi, now eating popcorn, screams, asking if she means today and saying it's impossible. The scene shifts to a building. Saihu appears talking to her father. She asks how he's doing. He responds that he heard she had a battle with a mutant in an MA zone and asks if she's hurt, to which she replies that she's not. He then scolds her, saying she needs to be more careful and reminding her that supports are the most common targets. She asks him to stop because he said this over and over again. He just repeats that if something goes wrong, she should run without looking back. Saihu tells him to stop. He says it's good to know she's partnered with someone reliable. Blushing, she admits that Jihan has indeed been a great help to her and the guild. She tells her father that if she hadn't met Jihan, she might still be stuck in the same place. He agrees. Her father is introduced as Jiano Kim, the head of research in Kyoto, Tokyo. He says he'd like to meet Jihan someday. Additionally, he mentions that Jihan is a hero who inherited his mother's powers, and that he has many questions for him. His assistant appears and tells him he needs to review the sample that just arrived. He replies that he's on his way and asks her to go ahead. Then he tells his daughter he has to hang up, but she asks him to wait and inquires when he's coming to Korea. He responds that it will be on the anniversary of her mother's death. She complains that he hung up on her and says that's typical of him. She stretches and says she needs to finish her housework quickly. Her phone starts ringing and she wonders why he's calling. The scene changes again. This time, Jihan is dressed to the nines and looking incredibly charming. It's shown that before leaving, Sashimi gave Jihan a good luck charm. Jihan asks what kind of luck it's supposed to bring. He says he's only wearing it because Sashimi wouldn't stop pestering him about it. While distracted, Yuri Min calls out to him. She asks if she kept him waiting long. Jihan thought to himself that she looked nothing like the MA. He told her he'd just arrived and she seemed relieved. After a bit of back and forth about who got there first, Yuri Min mentioned she'd already booked a table at a restaurant. Meanwhile, Sashimi was snacking on popcorn and pointed out to Saihu that the two were heading to lunch. A jealous Saihu wondered what Jihan was thinking. She was convinced this was all part of Yuri's scheme to take Jihan, furious that Yuri would dare do this after shooting arrows at them. As the guild master, Saihu decided this was completely unacceptable. The scene changed to the restaurant with Jihan and Yuri Min in the middle of their meal. Yuri commented on how good the coffee smelled, and Jihan agreed. Saihu stewed in her thoughts, repeating that this was not okay. Back at the table, Jihan complimented Yuri on her precise dark throws. He then offered to carry her teddy bear, but she told him it was fine and she didn't need any help. Sashimi remarked that the whole thing looked very suspicious, but Saihu didn't say a word. Instead, she punched Sashimi and declared that this was obviously a date. With a bruised face, Sashimi asked if she was just going to let it happen. Saihu replied that she had no reason to get involved in who Jihan decided to date. Even so, she couldn't shake the feeling that while she shouldn't interfere, something about it bothered her. The scene then returned to Jihan and Yuri. Jihan said he enjoyed himself, and Yuri agreed that she felt much better. Jihan then told her to get to the real reason she called him out. When she asked what he meant, he clarified that she didn't invite him just to hang out. Yuri admitted she was waiting for him to bring it up. She confessed that she was hoping he would come somewhere with her. Jihan guessed it was a hospital and she confirmed it, explaining that her sister was a patient there. As they walked into the hospital, Jihan wondered what had happened to her sister. He asked if he could go into the room. Suddenly, his ability activated on its own. Yuri explained that the person inside was her sister, Soyeon. The system window, which usually showed percentages, now displayed the girl's medical condition. Jihan read the words manic decoration syndrome and wondered what it was. Yuri then told him that her sister was the real reason she'd wanted to save the tigers. Yuri explained that a tiger attack 4 years ago was what put her sister in a coma. Ever since then, she hasn't woken up and the doctors are completely stumped. Ji-hyun realized that this was the reason she was so obsessed with hunting the tigers. Yuri confirmed it, admitting she thought she'd find an answer if she just kept at it. But she now knew she was wrong the entire time. She had believed the mutant factor held the key to her sister's cure. But after seeing the reports from today, she understood there was no link at all. Yuri apologized for how she acted, acknowledging that she put both Suhu and Jihoon in danger. Jihoon told her not to worry, saying he finally understood her reasons. Just then, Jihoon's ability flared to life again. This time, it calculated just how vital Yuri was for the expansion of Epic. In his mind, Jihoon knew Epic needed her. He realized this exact thing had happened before, the day he first met Sashimi. He remembered telling Suhu to stop, and in that moment, his ability had shown him Sashimi's importance to Epic. Jihoon felt like his power was actively guiding him toward his revenge. He'd never seen his ability behave like this before. He confessed to himself that he only hired Sashimi to figure out how his power worked. And now it was happening all over again, but this time with Yuri Min. Jahan was lost in thought. If he had found 1 out of 4, then Yuri Min was essential to completing his group. He still needed to find 3 more people. Yuri noticed he looked pale and overwhelmed and asked if he was alright. He just told her he was feeling a bit dizzy. His mind raced. When his ability first calculated Epic's chance of success, it was at 99%. But now it seemed there were new conditions to meet. Jae-hun started to feel weak, realizing that using his power so much was taking a toll on him. Still, he decided that if this was what it took, then he would do it. Jae-hun turned to Yuri and asked how many years she had been hunting those tigers. She told him it had been about 4 years. Ji-hun pointed out that in all that time, she hadn't found a single clue about how to wake her sister. Yuri had to agree. Ji-hun said he didn't know much about her methods, but since nothing had worked so far, it was probably time for a new strategy. Yuri asked what kind of approach he was suggesting. Ji-hun decided to give her an example. He rolled up his sleeve and pointed out that for a simple cut, you'd normally disinfect it and apply an ointment. He asked, did she know what was in those ointments? Yuri admitted she had no idea. Ji-hun explained it was a common ingredient called Centella asiatica or Indian pennywort. He told her it was just a regular plant you could find in any mountain or field. The plant had antibacterial and anti-inflammatory properties along with other benefits. Ji-hun continued explaining that while plants hadn't become monsters yet, some researchers thought it was only a matter of time. And for treating wounds, it wasn't the plant stem itself that was useful. The real healing came from the plant's extracts. Yuri found that an interesting way to look at it. The plant itself had nothing to do with her injuries, but it was still helpful. Gazing at her sister, Yuri thought this might apply to her situation. Then again, maybe it didn't, and it certainly didn't seem to connect to the tigers. Ji-hun realized that Yuri already knew everything he was telling her. She had simply chosen to push forward anyway. Her desire for revenge against the creature that hurt her sister was just that strong. With that in mind, Ji-hun told her he had a proposal. Proposal, she asked. Ji-hun said he wanted to recruit her for Epic. Yuri was stunned, asking if he really wanted her to join. He confirmed it. If she agreed, he promised to help with her sister's treatment. Yuri blushed as he assured her this wasn't an empty promise, but a firm contract. His ability began calculating the probability of him being able to help, but it wasn't giving him any new information, just showing the same results as before. Regardless, Ji-hun knew he had to recruit her. Yuri asked for some time to consider his offer. Ji-hun told her that was fine. She could take all the time she needed. Their conversation was over, and Ji-hun figured it was best to let her process everything. He said he had to go, and Yuri apologized for making him listen to her family's problems. He then glanced at his wrist, remembering the amulet Sashimi had given him. Ji-hun took off the amulet saying he had something for her. When Yuri asked what it was, he explained it was for good luck and suggested she give it to her sister. She thanked him, mentioning that her sister loved things like that. As he walked away from the hospital, he called out that he hoped they would see each other again. She just blushed happily and waved him goodbye. The scene then shifted to another large building. Inside, a group of people were gathered in a room for a meeting. One of them, Young Park, the owner of Kiro's, pointed out that they were late. Someone else on a microphone complained that they had been waiting for too long. Young Park decided the meeting should just start even if one guild was still absent. Doha then entered, complaining about who would schedule a meeting at such an hour. He added that it wasn't like anyone important was there anyway. His assistant noted they should have arrived sooner, but Doha replied that he had enough to worry about and questioned why he even needed to be there. Another man told Doha that for someone who was late, he sure had a lot to say. This was Hunan, leader of the Warriors Guild, who said everyone had been waiting for him. Doha shot back that someone must have come back from the dead, commenting that he thought Hunan's entire guild had been wiped out in the rank 1MA. Hunan jumped to his feet in anger, shouting that it would take more than that to bring down his guild and that they cleared that mission years ago. Another person in the background told them to lower their voices, remarking that they were still immature despite being guild leaders. The speaker was Gangchan, owner of the Red Hall Guild. He told Doha he thought he would have learned his lesson after being saved by him. Furious, Deosya asked if Gangchan had a problem and suggested they settle it outside. Gangchan simply said no, asking why he would waste his time on someone so weak. The rivalry between them was clear, a history of 103 matches. Jeongchang had 52 wins and 51 losses, while Doha had 51 wins and 52 losses. A woman nearby remarked that they were acting like a pair of children and wondered why men always felt the need to prove their worth. This was Myojo Kim, the owner of the Snowball Guild. Doha then said it had been a while since he'd seen her, guessing it had been about 3 years. Myojo got angry when Doha commented that her new look made her seem old, and she demanded to know who he was calling old. Doha, however, just said that things were the same as always. His assistant commented that no woman wants to hear she looks old. The meeting leader announced that now that everyone was present, they could begin. He explained he called them because of another major incident in Incheon. He then revealed that this time they found evidence that the IUPC was behind it. Everyone was shocked by his words. Doha exclaimed, "Those damn protesters." He added that this meant they could finally storm the IUPC headquarters with weapons. Someone told Doha to think before he spoke. Myoho told him that they couldn't do much with so little evidence and asked why he thought the guilds hadn't already taken action. The meeting leader agreed, stating that Myojo was right. With limited evidence, they couldn't do anything and had to be cautious. The presenter told everyone to look back at the screen, announcing that he wasn't finished. He pulled up an image of the saber-toothed tiger mutant that had shown up in Incheon. The people in the room started murmuring, asking what kind of monstrosity it was since none of them had ever seen one before. Gangchin spoke up, noting how grotesque the creature looked. The presenter agreed, explaining that its appearance made it an atypical mutant. He added that the hero department had been getting reports of similar creatures, like the red spider discovered on Mount Jian. He also mentioned a surge in carnivorous plants found in a private field. All of these new mutants, he said, started appearing right after the saber-toothed tiger. After this explanation, Hunan asked what the point was since it wasn't unusual for different kinds of monsters to show up. The presenter conceded that based on looks alone, these monsters weren't special cases. He continued, a DNA analysis revealed something else. All these new monsters shared a unique genetic modification that originated with the tiger mutant. Myojin demanded he get to the point and explain what this new modification was. So the presenter told them plainly that the modification was their mana crystals. He reminded them that every mutant has a mana crystal. The research department had figured out that mutants are born when a massive amount of mana fuses together. He stressed that mana crystals were still under heavy research, and with their current technology, creating one was impossible. However, the crystal inside the saber-toothed tiger was artificial. It had been specifically engineered to be transformed into a liquid. The crowd began to question him, with one person pointing out that he just said they lacked the technology for such a thing. Doha's assistant turned to him and asked if he knew anything about this. Doha replied that he didn't know much, only that it was a method that worked for elementals. Doha realized this was the reason for the sudden surge in mutants. It was all part of an experiment to turn mana into a liquid. Having figured it out, Doha announced to the room that it was obvious who was behind all this. Gang Chan found it interesting, but said they needed more than that to make such an accusation. He then asked what the IUPC had to do with any of it, reminding the presenter that he claimed to have evidence against them. The presenter explained that on the day of the incident, several suspicious people were spotted inside the MA. He said they had drone footage of these individuals and facial recognition had identified one of them. The man on the screen was Ma Lim, 33 years old and believed to be a manager at the IUPC. The presenter added that up until 4 years ago, Ma Sung Lim had been a researcher in the magical engineering department, but he was dismissed for causing disturbances. Gang Chan repeated the word disturbances and asked what exactly Ma Sung Lim had done. The presenter explained that the record showed he stole a mana crystal from the research center and performed illegal experiments on humans. Based on all the evidence, the association had identified Maze Young Lim as their main suspect. To capture him as soon as possible, they were officially asking all the guilds present for their help. Sometime after the meeting, the scene changed to a bus stop where Jae-hoon was waiting. As he stood there, he overheard a few people nearby talking about his clothes and commenting on how handsome he was. Someone nearby asked if he was a hero, but another person scoffed, wondering why a hero would ever take the bus. Jae-hoon ignored them, busy texting on his phone. He wondered why she wasn't replying to his messages. He really needed to talk to her. He thought about his offer to Yuri. He still hadn't heard back, but maybe it was time to tell C he wanted to recruit her too. Even without his abilities' insight, he knew someone like Yuri would be a huge asset to the guild. The only problem, he reminded himself, was money. A recruit like Yuri would be expensive. Still, they had some cash left over from the monster Sashimi took care of. Maybe they could negotiate a fair price. As he was lost in thought, a car pulled up to the curb. The driver leaned over and asked if he was getting in. Jihan quickly said yes. Jihan asked the driver to drop him at the building on the 5th corner, and the driver agreed. Then the man asked if he was a hero. When Jihan confirmed it, the driver laughed. He said he never imagined he'd have a hero in his car and that he was going to tell everybody. Jihan told him that was nice to hear. The driver then commented that based on his looks, Jihan had to be from a famous guild. He guessed Warriors, Red Hall, or maybe even Dice. A little embarrassed, Jihan admitted he was from a small guild called Epic. Jihan figured the man had probably never heard of them, but the driver repeated the name, Epic? He then asked if that was the guild that handled all those saber-toothed tigers at the Greenscape apartments. Jihan was surprised and asked how he knew that. The driver explained that he lived there. You really do? Jihan asked. The man just said it was a coincidence. They both went quiet for a moment and Jihan studied the driver. Then the driver muttered that it was a bad day for Lux, seeing something like that. Just then, a hybrid girl walked into a nearby alley. The driver added that hybrids gave him the creeps. Jihan asked him why. The driver seemed surprised, asking if he hadn't heard the rumors. Jihan just said she looked like a normal high school student. The driver shot back that student or not. That thing wasn't a person. He went on, saying that maybe to heroes, hybrids seem different. But for regular people, an attack from a hybrid meant they'd be dead in seconds. Jihan thought to himself that he could understand where the man's fear was coming from. He reflected on the invasion. When humans were attacked by all kinds of creatures, it made sense that some of that fear lingered. But still, that girl was just a child. He couldn't see how judging her like that was right, and in that moment he thought of Sihu. He realized she must have spent most of her life dealing with this exact kind of fear. Snapping out of his thoughts, Jihan noticed something odd. A group of men were tailing the girl, and his suspicion grew. He immediately told the driver to pull over, but the man refused, saying they were almost at the destination and he still needed to be paid. The girl didn't seem to notice her followers at first, but then she glanced back and saw them. She broke into a run. The men yelled for someone to catch her. One of them managed to grab her, covering her mouth with a cloth to muffle her screams. Her kidnappers called her a young hybrid, their lucky jackpot. They gloated about how pleased the VIPs would be with their delivery. Just then, Ji appeared demanding to know what was going on. He gave them a warning, count to 3 or they would all die. He then lunged forward, rattling off 1, 2, 3 in a split second. The men yelled at him to count properly, but Jihan was suddenly blocked by a newcomer. It was a huge thug who looked like he was itching for a fight. The big man told Jihan to stay out of their business. Jihan wondered just who this monster was. As their fight began in the alley, the scene changed to Epic's headquarters. A phone on a table was buzzing with a flood of messages. Sehun saw it vibrating and picked it up to see what was happening. Sashimi asked why she wasn't answering Jihan's texts. Sehun explained it wasn't Jihan, just debt collectors, and said she had no reason to ignore him. Sashimi teased her, saying she was still jealous. Sehun wondered why he was so late and texting so much. Then her eyes widened in shock as she read the messages. They were about a kidnapping. The view cut back to Jihan in the alley. The kidnappers held the hybrid girl, while the big thug stood in Jihan's way. Jihan asked if he was with them, warning that if he moved aside, he could walk away clean. But the thug cut him off, telling him to move. He then charged at Jihan, yelling that it was time to die. Jihan knew instantly that talking to this guy was pointless. The thug foolishly announced that the hero was gone. In a flash, Jihan was behind him. The hero you're looking for, he said, is right here. The thug spun around, claiming the hero was already dead. He swung a rock at Jihan's head, but Jihan blocked the attack just in the nick of time. A strange energy started radiating from the bulky thug. Jihan realized it must have been a mana-infused attack. Otherwise, his block wouldn't have worked. He briefly wondered if this muscular guy could also be a hero. The other thugs started loading the girl into a van. Jihan was trying to figure out how to stop their escape when the big guy ready to punch warning him not to look away. Jihan quickly hopped aside, dodging a rock the thug threw at him. Jihan thought about how he wanted to avoid damaging the neighborhood since it was a civilian area, but it seemed he had no choice. He'd have to use another 1% of his power. Just as he planned to take the guy down in a single blow, someone else showed up and told them to stop. This newcomer said he couldn't let them tear up the alley. He told Jihan he was lucky they were in a rush because they normally kill all witnesses. Jihan asked if everyone there was part of the same crew, but the white-haired man turned to his partner, asking if he'd forgotten their orders to handle the mission quietly. He scolded the big guy for making a scene on his first job. The white-haired man threatened that the boss might need a word with him, but the bulky thug insisted that wasn't necessary. He then punched a nearby wall, sending a shower of bricks flying right at Jihan. After that, both the bulky thug and the white-haired man said maybe next time, and then they just disappeared. Jihan sheathed his swords, noting they were gone. He wondered who those two were and what they wanted. Using his leaping skill, Jihan started scaling the nearby buildings. He activated his ability, trying to figure out which way the van went. He kept leaping from one rooftop to the next, thinking that if he kept this up, he'd eventually find their route. In the middle of his search, his phone began to ring. The caller was Sihu. Jihan asked if she was going to the address he sent. She said yes and demanded an explanation about the kidnapping. Jihan told her he witnessed a hybrid girl being taken. Suhu replied that she was on her way and would get the police involved. Jihan told her to be careful before hanging up. Suhu was left speechless, trying to process what she just heard. She thought about it. A person from another species had been kidnapped. She knew crimes like this were becoming more common lately. Sihu couldn't help but wonder why half-humans were being targeted. Meanwhile, the van Jihan was chasing was now parked in a deserted area. As he got closer, he muttered that he'd finally found them. Moving in, Jihan confirmed it was the right vehicle. When he got right up to it, he saw one of the thugs asleep inside, apparently waiting for the others. The sleeping man was suddenly woken up by a sharp knock on the window. Still half asleep, the man mumbled, asking if they were already done. The one at the window was Jihan. The guy scrambled for his phone, shocked at how quickly Jihan had tracked them down. But Jihan just punched straight through the glass and snatched the device. Holding the phone, Jihan looked irritated and asked if the man hadn't heard him knocking. He told the guy to stop waiting around and get out. The man nervously asked if Jihan was a hero, insisting he could explain the whole situation. Jihan told him they would talk once he was out of vehicle. Then Jihan hoisted the man into the air, declaring that he was the hero who discovered this crime scene. That meant the man's life was in his hands, and this was his final chance. Jihan demanded an explanation, but the overwhelmed man could only mumble. The scene changes to the inside of a warehouse where several people were hooded and bound. The sound of approaching footsteps filled them with fear. A man in a suit walked in carrying a large bag. He set it down before another person whose face lit up with delight. A bald man with a scarred head asked if that was today's delivery. The other man confirmed it was, saying it was the half-human cat girl their client had ordered. As soon as they ripped the tape from her mouth, she started screaming, begging them not to kill her. One of the men just laughed, remarking that she had some fight in her. She immediately offered them everything she had, pleading for her freedom. The bald man asked just how much money she was talking about. When she said it was around 2,000,001, he scoffed, saying it was nowhere near enough. She explained it was everything she'd saved after weeks of work. The bald man noted that she must have worked hard for it. He looked at the girl and said he didn't like repeating himself, but her money meant nothing to him. He explained that he stood to make 900,000,001 from selling her. Her buyers, he revealed, had some experiments in mind, so she shouldn't be upset. She was getting special treatment. He went on suggesting it was a better fate than being sent to a slaughterhouse, wasn't it? The scene then revealed the bodies of all the dead individuals at the location shown in detail after the conversation concluded. The bald man told his assistant the client would be there in 40 minutes and ordered him to clean everything up right away. The assistant agreed and started to get to work, but the girl cut in with a sharp question. She asked if he understood that what they were doing was completely illegal and had to stop. Without a hint of remorse, the bald man fired back a question of his own. He asked her what people would think if they saw her in such a helpless and humiliating state. He then declared that after all humanity had been through, what they really craved was revenge. He called her a monster without a hint of regret, just as a brilliant aura started to glow around her. She considered activating her berserk mode to get away, but something felt wrong. Her body wasn't responding, making her wonder if someone was directly blocking her mana. Just then, the bald man's assistant appeared from behind and smashed her head into the ground. He told her that mana was useless against him, leaving her completely powerless. Confused, the girl asked what he was doing, and he answered her calmly. He explained he was draining her mana, making sure she couldn't fight back. The bald man watched from a distance, telling his assistant not to damage the merchandise. He remarked that feline hybrids were always a problem and needed to be kept under control. The bald man figured she had gotten the message and ordered her taken to the waiting room. He warned that if she kept resisting, they would use force. The assistant moved to obey, but a sudden noise from the roof stopped everyone. The bald man looked up, curious about the sound. His assistant explained that he had guards stationed outside, ready for anything unusual. The source of the noise dropped down from the ceiling, kicking up a cloud of dust. It was the protagonist. Both the bald man and his assistant stared in confusion. Jae-hoon stood before them and got straight to the point, telling them that human trafficking was illegal. The assistant recognized him immediately, telling his boss it was the same guy who tried to stop them earlier. The bald man was shocked and demanded to know why he wasn't told about this. The assistant replied that he thought the guards had already dealt with Jae-hoon. Meanwhile, Jae-hoon stayed quiet, wondering if these two were the ones in charge. He realized this was much worse than it looked from the roof. Jae-hoon announced that his original plan was to call the police, but that had changed. He was going to handle this himself, declaring that they were just monsters that needed to be eliminated. Shaking with fear, the bald man begged for his life, claiming he was only following orders. Jae-hoon wasn't buying it and demanded to know who gave the orders right now. The bald man lowered his head, promising to give up every name if he was allowed to live. But as his head was bowed, a twisted maniacal smile spread across his face. The bald man suddenly screamed for his guards to kill Jae-hoon, ordering an immediate attack. In response, Jae-hoon activated his sampling ability and vanished in the blink of an eye. The guards looked around completely lost as to where Jae-hoon had gone. Suddenly, a voice called out from above them. It was Jae-hoon, announcing that he was right there, watching their every move. The guards exchanged nervous looks as Jae-hoon remarked that they were surprisingly skilled at concealing their presence. He wondered aloud if they might even be heroes, given their polished techniques. Without waiting for an answer, Jae-hoon leaped into action, unleashing a series of fast, precise attacks. When one of the henchmen tried to ambush him from behind, Jae-hoon expertly dodged and struck back in an instant. The bald man stared in disbelief, muttering that it was impossible for a rank 5 to be so powerful. Jae-hoon told them not to expect things to go their way, then renewed his assault with even greater force. Soon, the bodies of the boss's men and his assistant were lying defeated on the ground. Jae-hoon walked over to the girl and pulled the tape from her mouth so she could speak. Still dazed, she asked who he was. Jae-hoon replied that he was there to help get her out of this situation. He then informed her that the police were on their way and asked her a direct question. He needed to know if she remembered everything that had happened, as he would have to give the authorities a report. The cat girl confirmed that she did, but as she turned her head, she saw the bodies scattered across the floor. Jae-hoon apologized, explaining that he couldn't do anything for the other children who had been there. The cat girl began to cry, asking why she was treated like a monster. She wished she had never been born with her body and couldn't understand why people hated her so much. Jae-hoon watched silently, wanting to offer some comfort, but he couldn't find the words. The police arrived and confirmed that a hero from the Epic Guild had neutralized all the kidnappers. The camera focused on the cat girl's face, capturing all the despair she felt. The scene then shifted to an old traditional Japanese-style house. There, the manager of the IUPC was talking to a mysterious young man, thanking him for their meeting earlier. The young man said he was open to meeting again, and the manager thanked him once more for the information he had provided. The manager said the intel was extremely useful, commenting that they had almost manipulated the rising human. The mysterious young man confirmed he had been keeping up with the news and monitoring recent movements. He warned the manager that the association was watching him and asked if his organization could operate without problems. The manager told him not to worry, assuring him that everything was under control and working as planned. The young man warned that he wanted no complications, pointing out that too much news was breaking in one day. The manager, curious, asked for details. The young man brought up a potential plague in the area. He said they needed materials from a warehouse, but the police showed up and ruined their plans. He added that he wasn't sure if it was a coincidence, but the same hero who took down the cybercat was present at that warehouse. The manager sounded surprised, but quickly tried to calm the young man down, promising a fast and quiet resolution. The mysterious young man insisted on an efficient solution with no delays, and then ended the call. After their talk, the scene cut back to the kidnappers' hideout. Police officers were investigating the area. One of them noted that they had found 12 children alive. Sadly, the other victims were not so fortunate and had not survived. Jae-hun was speaking with a couple of officers when he heard his name called. He turned to see Si-hoo, who immediately asked what was happening and if the children were safe. Jae-hun told her that he had managed to save half of them, but the other half were already gone. Si-hoo looked worried and asked about the people responsible. He told her he hadn't killed any of them, explaining that the police were now handling the full investigation. In his mind, he noted her frightened expression, which made sense to him since she wasn't human. Jae-hyun said there was likely more going on behind the scenes. Leaving the culprits alive was the only way to find the others involved. He explained that the criminals mentioned a hipster client who was supposed to meet them but wouldn't appear with the police around. He asked the police to look into it, and an officer assured him it was under control, telling Jae-hun he could head home. Jae-hun asked if something was wrong. The officer explained that one of the victims wanted to speak with him. As Jae-hun wondered who it could be, the officer brought over the half-human cat girl. She apologized for bothering him and said she had a question. Si-hoo told the girl it was no problem at all and that everything was okay. Jae-hun understood that the girl wanted him to take her home instead of the police. She told him she lived at a place called Blue Sky at the top, which was a home for vulnerable children of other species. It was an orphanage for at-risk kids known as the best in the country. He was shocked that children from there were still being kidnapped. As he thought about it, he looked up and saw a girl who immediately grabbed his attention. She asked who he was, then suddenly ran towards someone standing a short distance away. The kidnapped girl, Riggs, ran forward and embraced the woman waiting for them. The other hybrid girl, Si-hoo, admitted she hadn't even noticed their presence. Riggs glanced back at Ji-hyun and Si-hoo, then told the woman it was no problem and to carry on. The woman introduced herself as Jae-hyun, the director of Blue Sky. She explained the police had contacted her earlier, asking if Jae-hun and Si-hoo were the ones who had found the girl. With a deep bow, she sincerely thanked them for saving Riggs. Si-hoo said it was nothing, just her duty as a hero. The director asked if they weren't too busy and invited them inside for a cup of tea, assuring them it would not take long. The three of them entered the facility, and Jae-hyun commented that the place was surprisingly peaceful for an orphanage. The director explained that at this hour, all the children were already asleep. But just then, 3 children came running out, shouting that Riggs had finally returned. One of them rushed to hug her, while the director scolded them to go back to bed. A child asked if Riggs was hurt, and another, full of relief, said they were glad she was back safe. Jae-hun commented that the children didn't look like they'd gotten enough rest. The director apologized for them. Riggs then offered to take the children back to bed herself, asking the others to go ahead without her. Jae-hun noted how strong she was even after everything that had happened. Soon, the 3 of them were seated waiting for Riggs to return. The director apologized again, explaining that children these days are very energetic. Jae-hyun replied that it was refreshing to see children just being themselves without any restrictions. The director, looking downcast, admitted she had carelessly mentioned the kidnapping to the police. Because of this, she explained, all the children had stayed up waiting for an explanation. Jae-hun seized the opportunity to ask if any other victim besides Riggs had been taken from the orphanage. With a relieved smile, the director replied that Riggs was the only one involved in the incident. She lamented that other facilities had not been so lucky. Hearing this, Jae-hun became visibly shaken and asked if there had been similar cases in the past. At that moment, someone entered, apologizing for interrupting their conversation. Jae-hun turned to see who it was. A red-haired woman walked in, bringing 3 cups of tea for the group. The director thanked a woman named Leela for staying up late to help. Layla replied that it was not a problem since it was her responsibility. She quickly glanced at Jae-hun and asked the director if these were the people she had mentioned earlier. The director confirmed they were, and Layla bowed, thanking the 2 heroes for saving Riggs. The director then commented that Leela had also gone through something similar. 4 years ago, 2 children faced the same situation, but only Leela survived. Jae-hun quickly apologized for overhearing their talk. CHA then asked if there was anything they could do, offering a donation from their guild if the director would accept it. The director thanked her, but politely declined. She explained that many others had offered help before. She looked at them, saying that a lot of people made promises they didn't keep. When they were in desperate need, a financial group that had pledged support never delivered. The director said only one guild truly helped them in their most difficult time. That guild was Dice, led by the hero Doha. Without their help, she never would have found Layla. Jae-hun thought to himself that this was 4 years ago, back when Doha was known for causing trouble. The director continued, saying that during that period, many of their supporters had very different reactions. Many non-human races held a grudge against the heroes. Jae-hun commented that the whole thing sounded like a dilemma. Even when people offer help, everyone seems to gain something from it. The director said she really wanted to accept their offer, but she was afraid of what might happen later. Sihi listened, tucking her hair behind her ears. She said if that was the director's only concern, then she had nothing to worry about. The director asked what she meant. It was then that Siha revealed she was also a hybrid. The director and Layla exchanged surprised glances, and Layla asked if Sika was a half-elf. The director remarked that she thought Siha was the guild master. Siha confirmed the guild was founded by a half-elf, but said there was nothing special about it. She shared that she had faced a great deal of discrimination for being a half-elf. There was even a time she had to step away from her duties to avoid being a guardian. She then looked at Jae-hun and said that some people choose to understand you. Instead of just criticizing, there are people you can genuinely trust. Siha told the director she was one of those people. The director, looking happy, said that maybe something could be done after all. In that moment, she thought that perhaps these two could truly make a difference. As she watched them, the director felt a gentle breeze. The wind moved toward the door as if bringing new hope to someone in need. The scene then shows us the half-human cat girl named Rixus. The view changes again, fading to a point of light. Si apologized to Jae-hun, but he told her it wasn't a problem. He did say, however, that she must understand the donation would significantly affect the guild. She confirmed she understood and asked him not to remind her again. Jae-hun complimented Siha, telling her she truly acted like a guild master. The scene then shifts to the guild headquarters. With her arms crossed and a furious look, Sihu demanded, "Are you serious about bringing Yuri Min into the guild?" Ji-hun calmly replied, "Now that the guild is level 4, it's time we recruit it, but it's not confirmed. Yuri Min is still thinking about it." Sihu relaxed, realizing they were just discussing the possibility, not that a decision had been made. "Do you really think you can get her?" she asked. Jae-hun answered confidently, "We won't know unless we try." Sihu was surprised and thought hard about the sudden opportunity, weighing the pros and cons. "A chance to recruit someone like Yuri doesn't come along every day," she said thoughtfully. She then gave Jae-hun some advice. "I'll let your action slide this time, but next time, I expect to be informed in advance." Jae-hun lowered his head. "Understood. I'll remember that." Now calmer, Sihu declared the discussion over and asked how they planned to use Rixie's gift. Still holding the crystal, Jae-hun asked, "You mean the mana crystal?" Sihu confirmed it. "Yes. That one." Rixie said it was from Carol. As Jae-hun examined the crystal, he noted, "This is much denser than the mana crystals we usually find." He continued, "We could just give it to Si-ulp, but I want to learn something from this." Curious, Sihu asked, "What kind of opportunity are you talking about?" Ji-hun gave a calm smile. "It will present itself soon." He then began to summon Sylph, but his tone grew serious. "Where are you going? Why did you suddenly hide?" Holding Sylph in his hands, he said, "We're in an office. There's no reason to hide." Visibly irritated, Sylph let out a high-pitched sound that echoed in the room, making her annoyance clear. Ji-hun, growing impatient, told her to calm down, saying her behavior was giving him a headache. Watching the scene, Sihu wondered when Ji-hun had started talking to Sylph that way. It reminded her of her mother, who shared a similar closeness with the spirit. Ji-hun pointed to the mana crystal. "You like these, don't you? Take a look." Sylph darted toward the crystal, ready to devour it. But Jae-hun blocked her with his hand, saying firmly, "Not so fast." He sounded frustrated. "You did the exact same thing last time. I was so embarrassed when you did that." Holding Sylph, he added, "If you keep this up, you won't get the mana crystal." Sylph made a small noise as if to apologize. Jae-hun then began giving orders. His first command was for Sail FH to form 3 polygons, which she did immediately. He then gave the second order. "Now spin clockwise." He continued to give precise and detailed instructions, maintaining complete control. Observing this, Sihu commented, "You don't sound like a teacher. You're more like a sergeant." She thought of her mother, remembering that her contract with Sylph was a mutual friendship. Feeling a bit uncomfortable, she thought Ji-hyun is treating Sylph like a pet dog. But Sylph figured it was Sylph's problem since she was the one who chose him. Seeing that Sylph had followed his orders, Jae-hoon offered the mana crystal as a reward. Sylph, full of excitement, rushed right for it. Jae-hoon smiled and told her to calm down, that there was no need to hurry. In that instant, an explosion erupted in a bright flash. Jae-hoon felt the intensity of the moment and knew something was different. Sylph was absorbing much more mana than usual. He remembered Duha's words about gathering as many mana crystals as possible so Sylph could materialize her body. Suddenly, the mana crystal cracked. Jae-hoon realized it was happening. Sylph was forming a body just as Du had said. A second explosion went off, releasing another burst of light. Now on high alert, Jae-hoon closed his eyes. When he opened them, he was somewhere else entirely. He wondered where he was. A voice began to speak, telling him he was in a virtual space she had created. A surprised Jae-hoon turned around as the voice said they could finally talk. Startled, Jae-hoon asked how she could speak. The voice explained that the mana crystal he gave her allowed them to have this temporary conversation in her created space. She warned, however, that she couldn't maintain it for long and would have to be brief. Jae-hoon wondered why he was brought to this place so full of mana. The voice revealed that they were being pursued. Just as she had used the crystal to restore her strength, the people chasing them were doing the same. She warned Jae-hoon to be wary of those around him, especially the ones he trusted most because they had the most to hide. Jae-hoon asked if one of his trusted allies was a traitor. The voice replied that she wasn't certain, but that he would find out for himself. She then told him to protect Sihu at all costs. This was Erna's will, and the only reason he was chosen as a successor. Confused, Jae-hoon asked for a clearer explanation, but the voice insisted he would understand in time. As the crystal ball nearly shattered, she promised they would meet again at the right moment. When Jae-hoon returned to where he was in shock, clearly shaken by what he had just been through. He was crying while holding Sihu's arm. Sihu asked if he was okay and if he thought he'd never wake up. Still dazed, Jae-hoon replied that he had just met Sylph. A confused Sihu asked what he meant by that. At that moment, an energy began to glow again. The two of them looked on, realizing that something had changed. The aura and the light it gave off were different. They both began to think that Sylph was now something else entirely. The scene then shifts to the UPC in Korea, where 3 people are present. One man was busy with some equipment near a test rad. The 2 men who had fought Jae-hoon in the alley, now identified as 015 and 013, stood by as a vial of liquid was poured onto the rad. The researcher remarked that their last kidnapping attempt was a total failure. Because of it, they had lost their main base and the trust of their business partners. He demanded to know who should be held accountable for the disaster. As the rad began to transform, 015 spoke up, making it clear that his only task had been to provide an escort. He explained they avoided a direct fight with the hero because they were afraid of exposing themselves. The researcher, visibly frustrated, asked if they were seriously concerned about that. He questioned if those were really their excuses for being defeated by a single hero. With a stern look, the researcher told them this was not the reason they were created. He warned that he would not repeat himself. As the tension thickened around 015, the distressed researcher ordered them to bring in the hunter from the old days. The 2 agents immediately agreed and prepared to carry out the order. Suddenly, someone ran into the room announcing that there was a problem. The researcher, concerned, asked what had happened. The person reported that heroes were invading the location. She informed him that the Dice Guild had arrived and was arresting everyone in the office. 015, who had been silent, stated that this had to be a direct order from the association. He commanded everyone to be gathered immediately. The scene shifts to a person knocking on a door. Bang appears and asks if Doha called for him. Doha says he heard everything that went down in the rank 4MA area, and acknowledged that Bang's platoon had managed to save the day. Bang commented that by the time he arrived, the mutants were almost completely defeated. In response, Doha told him there was no need to be so modest. With that, Doha said he had another task for him, and Bang asked if it was another MA. Doha replied that it was not. He explained that he needed Bang to arrest the IUPC manager, a man known as Masoing Lim, along with all his employees. Bang, acting cautiously, questioned whether the Department of Hero Associations had authorized the arrest. He warned that without authorization, it would only cause more problems for the Dice Guild. Doha, determined, insisted they had to take the risk, saying they would never be able to capture them otherwise. He also revealed the most important piece of information, that there was a mole within the association. A confused Bang asked if he meant a traitor was collaborating with the IUPC. Doha confirmed it and linked the mole to the recent increase in cases where heroes were involved in dark accidents. He emphasized that he saw no benefit in making pacts with other guilds. He warned Bang to be cautious as he had a very bad feeling about all of this. The scene then shifts back to Bang inside the headquarters. A few of the detained people begged to be let go, insisting they were innocent. Bang was lost in thought, mulling over what Doha had reported about the criminal activity. He looked around and saw that none of them seemed like any real danger. Just then, Kim Han-suk showed up. He said he'd checked them all and confirmed they were just ordinary civilians. Bang asked if they had found Masoing Lim yet. That's when one of the captured men started talking, warning that everyone would die if that person found out. Bang walked over to the man, who looked half dead, and asked him what he meant. The man just repeated that everyone there was going to die when those people got there. Bang demanded to know who he was talking about and told him to stop wasting time. Finally, the man answered. He said that when the blessed ones arrived, they would all see how blind and arrogant they'd been. Bang wondered who these blessed ones could be and if they had a connection to Masoing Lim. Kim Han-suk just brushed the guy off as a fanatic talking nonsense and said they should just leave him. At the same time, two other members of the group felt a strange mana nearby, almost like a monster's. And right on cue, 003 and 015 appeared. They announced they were there to kill all the heroes. 015 commented that this was perfect. He'd been looking for someone to take his anger out on. The three members of Bang's team sensed something off about the enemy's mana. Kim Han-suk asked what was going on, and the hooded member told everyone to be careful. With one hand in his pocket, Bang asked 015 if he knew where to find Masoing Lim. 015 said he did, then asked why they were looking for him. Without waiting for an answer, 015 rushed the group, shouting that they'd all become empty shells anyway as he attacked. Just then, monstrous larvae started crawling out from around 015. The woman on the team drew her sword, activating her blue dragon wings / ability. All of a sudden, a scream cut through the air. She knew something was wrong. The larvae were now attacking the other people allied with the manager. She couldn't understand why the creatures were attacking their own side and thought about how strange 013 and 015 were acting. 0113 suddenly appeared and punched her in the head, telling her he would save her and to just wait. She turned, angry at herself for getting distracted. At the same time, 0013 unleashed a powerful attack and energy exploded across the area. 0013 casually noted that the hero had managed to block his attack. The hooded member saw an opening and yelled that this was his chance. Just then, Kim Han-suk appeared from above, slamming a flying kick right into 013's head. The kick landed perfectly, driving 013's head straight into the ground. The three team members stood there, watching 013's motionless body. 015 wondered aloud if they'd actually beaten him, admitting that the Dice Guild's rank 3 squad was strong. But even then, 015 said it didn't matter because Masoing Lim had already gotten away. In a flash, Bang was right beside him, staff in hand and moving faster than before. Bang asked if 015 really thought he had time to be distracted. Bang swung his staff, but 015 barely managed to dodge. Still, 015 couldn't understand how Bang was moving so fast. The next thing he knew, 015 was on the ground with a part of his body missing. 015 muttered that the report on Bang had been wrong, that he was incredibly strong. Bang told him it was a rookie mistake to let his guard down around an enemy. Even a single second was all it took. Bang turned and asked if the others had captured 013. He said that was enough for one day and ordered them to take the injured along with the two captives back to the Dice Guild. But 015 just laughed loudly and mocked Bang, saying he talked a big game about staying on guard, but was now ignoring his own advice. Bang was stunned that 015 was still conscious just as 0013 started to get back on his feet. 0015 impatiently asked 0013 how much longer he planned to be on the ground and ordered him to take something. He then declared that everyone there was lucky because they were about to witness the second blessing. The scene then shifts to the Dice Guild building where Si-Hu and Jihan were watching the place. Si-Hu remarked on how quickly the renovations had been finished. Jihan guessed it was because the guild master was an earth elementalist. Just then, the Dice Guild assistant appeared. She greeted them, saying, "Welcome to the Dice Guild. It's a pleasure to meet you. Welcome to the Dice Guild. It's a pleasure to meet you. Welcome to the Dice Guild. It's a pleasure to meet you. Welcome to the Dice Guild. It's a pleasure to meet you. Welcome to the Dice Guild. It's a pleasure to meet you. Welcome to the Dice Guild. It's a pleasure to meet you. Welcome to the Dice Guild. It's a pleasure to meet you. Welcome to the Dice Guild. It's a pleasure to meet you. Welcome to the Dice Guild. It's a pleasure to meet you. Welcome to the Dice Guild. It's a pleasure to meet you. Welcome to the Dice Guild. It's a pleasure to meet you. Welcome to the Dice Guild. It's a pleasure to meet you. Welcome to the Dice Guild. It's a pleasure to meet you. Welcome to the Dice Guild. It's a pleas noting it had been a while, and asked what brought them to the guild. Saihu explained that they were there to see Doha. Hearing this, the assistant apologized and told them he wasn't available. Jihan took the opportunity to mention that their business involved Seal PH and asked her to please let Doha know they had visited. Before she could reply, a shout grabbed their attention. A man came running up reporting that they had lost contact with Bang's squad. He added that their last known location was the IUPC headquarters. The assistant, shocked, scolded him for discussing such a sensitive matter out in the open where other guilds could overhear. She worried to herself, wondering why something so critical was happening while Doha was gone. Jihan seized the moment to ask for an explanation about the relationship between DICE and the IUPC. Following their conversation, the scene changes to a helicopter. Inside, the three of them flew toward the building, discussing their next move. Jihan broke the silence, asking if they had invaded the IUPC. In a serious tone, the assistant revealed that what she was about to share was highly confidential. She explained that weeks ago, the Hero Association had ordered all guilds to cooperate on a joint investigation into the IUPC. She named Mai Soi Lim as the main person of interest in the operation. The plan had been discussed among South Korea's 6 largest guilds and was set to begin in the next few days. Saihu asked why the DICE Guild decided to act alone if it was a joint effort. The assistant clarified that Du doesn't trust the other guilds, believing that such operations often lead to unnecessary conflict. Because of this, the DICE Guild chose to act on its own and began the investigation ahead of the official plan. She admitted that Bang's squad was sent to invade the building, but they had lost all contact. At this, Saihu pointed out that they couldn't send another squad without exposing the guild. The assistant lowered her head, agreeing that they had no other options. That's when Jihan interrupted, telling them they could leave it to him. Jihan argued that his guild was perfect for the job since it was small and no one would suspect them. With just the 2 of them, getting into the IUPC base would be much easier. He opened the helicopter door and then paused, causing Saihu to stop as well. Deep in thought, Jihan figured this was the perfect chance to test Sylph's new abilities. He called to Saihu and told her to use her levitation skill again. Confused, Saihu asked if he wanted her to jump from a high place again. Jihan simply replied that there was no time to think, and then he jumped. She asked for a moment to get the spell ready. The scene then cut to the inside of the IUPC headquarters. Someone was lying on the floor, which was covered in ketchup. Bang leaned against a wall and spat out some ketchup, wondering what had happened and if he had passed out. He tried to see if everyone was okay, but then he saw something awful. Bang's squad had been completely destroyed. After the fight with Euro 15 and 013, only their bodies were left. As this sank in, Bang stood up, trying to remember how it all happened. He suddenly felt a sharp pain and saw that his arm was cut. He screamed in agony, crying out that it was all his fault. Just then, 015 appeared and asked if Bang was just going to sit there. He taunted him, reminding Bang that he was the one who always said not to get distracted in a fight. 015 had a new look and declared that he had been waiting for Bang, adding that he wouldn't let the mana crystal go to waste. He then glanced to his side and asked if the other person felt the same. 013 appeared, now in a monstrous form, and said, "Weak hero." Bang realized the bodies had been turned into monsters and knew the IUPC was conducting these experiments. He decided he had to warn Doha at all costs. While Bang was lost in his thoughts, Kim Han-suk started sighing. Bang asked if he was listening, but Kim Han-suk just apologized, saying he should have protected everyone as the squad's tank. Looking at Kim Han-suk's eyes, Bang said it was okay, seeing he was in no condition to move or speak. Bang mentioned that the guild was sending reinforcements, but Kim Han-suk said it didn't matter. He insisted Bang had to leave quickly since he himself couldn't escape. He begged Bang to tell the guild what happened there. At that, Bang told him to stop talking, warning that if he continued, he would just cough up more ketchup. While Kim Han-suk insisted that Bang must survive, the gorilla known as 013 delivered a powerful punch. Ketchup splattered everywhere as Bang watched the horrifying scene. The gorilla began calling for the heroes. Bang stood up in a rage, calling them bastards and vowing to take them both down. However, as he spoke, 013's hand came right for him. Bang took a direct hit and was slammed into the wall with enough force to hear his bones breaking. 015 and 013 remained standing. 0015 commented on how tragic the situation was. He told 0013 not to kill Bang as he wanted to bring him to the manager. At that moment, a voice declared from the background that no one was leaving. It was Jihan and Sihu who had arrived. Bang stared, asking Jihan what he was doing there. He yelled that they needed reinforcements and urgent medical care for his team. Jihan simply took in the scene, realizing nothing more needed to be said. 013 charged straight for Jihan, shouting about taking his head to the manager. 015 warned him to stay back and be careful. Jihan told Sihu he would handle this by himself, and she asked if he was really sure he could. As he gathered power in his hand, Jihan asked her to stay behind so she wouldn't get hurt if he lost control. He admitted he still wasn't entirely sure he could manage Sylph. At that very moment, Sylph's physical form appeared. Jihan began to strike at 013, drawing his sword. His eyes glowed as he felt the overwhelming mana from Sylph. As 013 closed in, Jihan noticed his blade had changed, transformed by Sylph's power. In that instant, Jihan delivered a powerful strike toward the gorilla, his attack emitting an intense glow. The move was called Aura Blade. This power comes from mana manipulation. It's a force derived from nature, obtainable only through a contract with an elemental spirit. The explanation went on, noting that normal elemental magic also originates from nature. However, that kind of magic is a mere limitation compared to true elemental manipulation. This manipulation is born from a genuine connection between the element and the contractor, operating on a completely different level. For Jihan, this part was easy, but he faced a bigger problem. He had almost no mana, unlike other heroes born with plenty. Jihan had none. Whenever he used magic, he was risking his life. To cope, he developed a technique to consume minimal mana, which made his fighting style resemble swordsmanship more than powerful magic. But things had changed. Sylph had evolved, allowing her elemental form to take a physical shape. With this, Jihan could draw additional mana directly from the elemental instead of using his own. He had surpassed his previous limits and become a true wind elementalist. In the next scene, 015 covered his face as dust filled the area. He couldn't understand how Jihan defeated 013 with a single blow, especially in his powerful form. 013 lay on the ground, his body split, calling for the hero and saying he must be eliminated under the manager's orders. Jihan observed 013 and noticed a purple glow coming from his mana, which resembled the mutants. He deduced that their bodies were likely fused with mutant elements. Jihan then turned to 015 and recalled that he had mentioned crossing paths before in the alley during a small confrontation. He admitted that back then, he couldn't have defeated 015, but warned that this time it would be different. Jihan summoned Sylph and gripped his sword, advancing towards 015. He declared that one way or another, he would uncover everything about what 015 is and what he's planning. 015, terrified, realized Jihan was too strong and fighting him would be suicide. He recalled Ma Soing-lim's orders to bring back Jihan's head and knew returning empty-handed would have severe consequences. Looking back, 015 saw the fallen body and started thinking of how he could use it. 0-15 sent his larvae swarming toward the fallen body, taking control of it in an instant. Now holding Bang captive, 0-15 asked Jihan if that man was important to him. An irritated Sihu pointed out the obvious, telling Jihan that Bang was now a hostage. A smug grin appeared on 015's face as he threatened to snap Bang's neck at the slightest wrong move. Jihan, sword at the ready, said he couldn't allow that. Then he lowered his weapon and made a proposal. If 015 released Bang, he and Sihu would back off. 015 was satisfied, celebrating to himself how easy it was to manipulate heroes. Just put one of their own in danger and they crumble. He figured Ma Soing-lim already knew what was going on and that backup would be there in minutes. But while 015 was distracted, Jihan suddenly appeared right in his face. Jihan couldn't believe he'd fallen for such an obvious trap, and he immediately attacked the larvae controlling Bang. Furious, 015 called Jihan a bastard. Jihan just replied that he never expected 015 to be so gullible. Jihan then launched a direct assault on 015. Sliced in two, 015 couldn't understand how it happened. He was just about to enter his second phase. As the creature made strange noises, Jihan walked up, pointed his sword at its head, and demanded answers. Jihan asked what the IUPC was planning, who Ma Soing-lim was, and where he could be found. Sweating, 015 admitted he finally understood why Lim saw Jihan as such a threat. He tried to convince Jihan to leave the Hunters Association and join them, saying other heroes had already received Ma Soing-lim's blessing. 015 added that as a wind elementalist, Jihan would become even more powerful with the blessing. But Jihan cut him off, saying he wasn't interested and demanded to know the IUPC's real goal. 015 just laughed, called Jihan naive, and said the boss's plan was already in motion. Everyone would find out soon enough. Meanwhile, C, who was tending to Bang's injuries. She tried to see if he could hear her as he mumbled in pain. Bang asked if she was from Epic and why she was there. Sihu explained that Doha's assistant had sent her. Bang was frustrated, saying the whole situation was embarrassing since he had been the one to evaluate both of them. Sihu told him not to move or talk, warning that she'd only managed to stop the bleeding for now. He still tried to ask if they had defeated one of the enemies. Sihu told Bang not to worry, that Jihan had taken care of one of them. Hearing that, Bang asked what she meant. Bang suddenly felt a huge surge of mana coming from one of the bodies. He warned her that one of them was still alive, but as he focused, he realized the mana was unfamiliar and far stronger than anything else there. Just then, a figure appeared right behind Jihan. Jihan reacted instantly, swinging his sword as he wondered if there were more enemies, but his blade was stopped by a dagger. A woman's voice remarked that it was rude to raise a weapon against a lady. Jihan was completely baffled, trying to figure out who this woman was. She told him she liked his style, that he was exactly her type. This only confused Jihan more since she had just blocked his aura-infused sword as if it were a toy. He took a step back, analyzing her. This was clearly no random person. The woman moved closer, calling him cute and praising him again. Then she asked if he wanted to be her boyfriend, promising she would take very good care of him. A surprised Jihan replied, "No. Thank you." His mind raced, wondering if she was another one of the IUPC's experiments. The woman sighed, saying it was a shame because she had really wanted him. Her attention then shifted to 015 on the ground. She commented that he would catch a cold lying there. 015 desperately pleaded for another chance, claiming all he needed was one more mana crystal. The woman stood over him, stating that he had already reached his limit after using 2 of them. She explained that test subjects like him couldn't handle any more than, but 015 kept begging, insisting he could beat Jihan with just one more crystal. Her patience ran out. She struck 015's body, saying she hated repeating herself. Jihan watched the scene in shock. The woman declared that those who can't win a simple fight don't deserve a second chance. She continued to attack 015 before finally turning back to Jihan. She said she was curious to see how he would handle this, but warned him he only had one chance. She wanted to see if he would mess everything up. After delivering several more blows to 015, the woman slowly got to her feet. Jihan asked if they weren't on the same side and why she would do that. She responded sarcastically, asking if he felt sorry for 015. She called that kind of compassion useless and worthless. The woman declared that people like him were deadweight that needed to be eliminated before they slowed everyone else down. With a smile, she pointed her dagger at Jihan and said that was enough talk. She charged at him, stating she couldn't stand people who didn't know when to shut up. As the dagger flew toward his neck, Jihan called for Sylph, who blocked the attack. The woman was surprised, commenting that Jihan was full of tricks and had a peculiar companion. But as she spoke, she was cut off by a counter-attack from Jihan that sent her flying. With a powerful blow, Jihan threw her straight into a wall. He stood still waiting for another attack, knowing that strike wouldn't be enough. He alerted Sylph that the woman was still on her feet. Thinking he had bought a little time, Jihan considered going back to check on her. However, the woman rose from the debris and asked where he thought he was going. She said it had been a while since she found someone like him, and mentioned that Jirai was very interested. Jihan realized his blow hadn't been effective enough. He would have to face her directly. The woman advanced, declaring that Jirai wasn't done playing with him yet. Holding his sword, Jihan asked Sylph to imbue his blade once again. As she brought her weapon down in an overhead attack, she taunted Jihan, asking what his next move would be. Jihan swung his sword, trying to cut her in half, but something felt off. It was just an afterimage. As he looked for her, Jihan felt her presence right behind him, dagger raised. He managed to block the strike just in time, knowing that without his skills, he would have been in real danger. He thought to himself that she fought just like an assassin. Jihan steeled his resolve, certain she couldn't dodge his next attack. Just then, a system window popped up, showing an 85% chance of success. But she left another afterimage behind, using it to escape downward. She had dodged him again. As Jihan considered this, he saw that her movements were completely erratic. The woman remarked that it was a close call. If she had been even a second slower, she would have ended up just like the other two. She knew Jihan had taken out 013 and 015. He realized that if he didn't stop her right now, she would become a serious threat later on. Weighing his options, Jihan chose to go with a final decisive blow, thinking it was his only shot. The woman, prepared for the clash, noted that she'd never witnessed an aura like his before. She charged at Jihan, declaring that she would always be ready to fight him. Jihan, determined, announced he would destroy the entire area just to see how she'd escape this time. He launched a rapid series of attacks at her but was cut short. The manager had suddenly appeared, ordering them to stop fighting at once. Both Jihan and the woman turned in shock. The manager explained he had only told her to evaluate the scene, not to start a battle. The man adjusted his glasses and introduced himself as Masoing Lim. He greeted Jihan, showing he was familiar with his standing in the Epic Guild. The woman still holding her dagger acknowledged Lim's arrival. While Jihan questioned why the manager was here, she complained that she could have handled everything herself and demanded to know why he showed up. Masoing Lim sarcastically asked if this was her plan for resolving the situation. She shot back that it was impossible to fix things without some destruction. As they argued, the manager scanned the area and asked about the status of 013 and 015. The woman confirmed they were both dead, adding that 015 had the nerve to ask for another mana crystal even after he was beaten. The manager replied with disgust, calling them pathetic. He told Jirai to gather the mana crystals because they were leaving. Jirai protested, wanting to stay and fight a bit longer, but Jian cut her off, stating that nobody was going anywhere. Jihan declared them both class of criminals and that they were under arrest. He told them that backup from the Hero Association was on its way, so they should stay quiet and not make any more trouble. But the manager just laughed at him. He said he was counting on those reinforcements, claiming it was all going according to his plan. The manager's smile twists into something psychotic as he lets out a malicious laugh. Suddenly, an overwhelming aura of mana explodes from him. The sheer weight of the energy forces Jihan to his knees. He gasps that no human should possess this level of power. Seeing Jihan on the ground, the manager explains his original plan. He wanted to lure the 6 major guilds in the area right to this spot, but he says the Dice Guild ruined everything by acting alone. Still, he considers it a partial success. A confused Jihan asks if the manager was always a mole in the association, insisting no member would ever approve of such an extreme plan. The manager confirms the association doesn't just follow his orders. Jirai then chimes in, telling Jihan he's more naive than she thought. She reveals the association has a traitor. Jihan is left stunned, trying to make sense of it all. The scene cuts to the office of the association's president. Inside, the general president, Jun Young, slams a paper down on his desk. He declares that the time has finally come. Jun Young walks out, locking the door behind him. Just then, a voice echoes through the room, asking what the hurry is. The figure who steps forward is Du. He gives the president a hard look and asks how the traitor is doing. The president is clearly nervous but tries to hide his fear, asking Doha what he means. Before he can get another word out, a block of earth shoots up from the floor and smacks him in the head. Another one follows right after. The president writhes in pain, screaming and demanding to know why Doha is attacking him. Doha doesn't hesitate to lay out his suspicions. He says that only one person could manipulate Korea's 6 major guilds and leak hero information to the IUPC, and that person is the president. Cornered, the president insists it's all just a big misunderstanding. As he struggles under the weight of the earth block, the president asks how long Du has known. Doha's response is cold and immediate. He never trusted him. He explains that someone so deceitful leading an association had always made him suspicious. Wasting no more time, the president activates his power and demonic wings burst from his back. He mocks Doha, asking if he really thought he got to the top just by flattering heroes. He shows off his new form, declaring it's the result of IUPC technology, something far beyond Doha's understanding. Doha realizes the transformation must be powered by mana crystals taken from mutants. The confident president declares the Age of Heroes is finished, calling them outdated relics that need to be destroyed. Doha stays calm and raises an earth wall to defend himself, but the president smashes right through it, laughing at the effort. The president charges forward, calling Doha a mere Class 1 hero. Doha watches his opponent's destructive power carefully. He dodges a sharp attack and in one quick motion grabs the president's arm. Doha states that he never underestimates close quarters fighting. Then, with a burst of strength, Doha dislocates the president's arm. The president let out a dramatic scream, but Doha knew it was just for show. Then, the president unleashed a horrifying ability called Dark Pulse, letting out a terrifying shriek. Doha felt the sheer force of the attack, which reminded him of the demonic wings. He understood that the president was no longer human. The blast tore through the surroundings, escalating the fight. As the dust settled, revealing a massive crater, the association president raised his hand in victory. He jeered at Doha, questioning if he was really as strong as his reputation suggested, and gloated about how the tables had turned. Full of himself, the president provoked Doha further, saying his guild members were crushed like bugs because of his poor leadership. He even hinted that Bang was in danger, trying to get under his skin. But as he was gloating, a steady voice cut him off. Doha appeared completely unharmed and said with disgust that he hated dealing with demonic wings. The president, confused, demanded to know how he was fine. Doha simply explained that heroes are always prepared to risk everything. He added that underestimating Bang was a mistake. And while the president's little monster trick was interesting, it wasn't nearly enough. Doha then called forth Mumu. The president was baffled as the ground began to shake violently. The entire building started to crumble around him. In a panic, he screamed about something underground swallowing everything up. Doha mocked him, throwing his own words back at him about elementalists being relics of the past. He explained that this attack used mana to trap an enemy and wished him good luck trying to escape. But despite it all, the president started laughing like a madman. Annoyed, Dioka asked what was so funny. The president explained his real plan. Using a fake joint investigation with the IEPC as a cover, he had sent tons of heroes far away from the city. He then announced that the main event was just getting started. The scene cut to a quiet street where people were walking around peacefully. A little boy pointed up at the sky, getting his mother's attention. Before she could figure out what he was looking at, she felt a sense of dread and a monster suddenly appeared. Chaos erupted as everyone started screaming for help. The mother threw herself over her child to protect him. In the middle of the panic, a heroine named Misoying arrived. She told the woman and her son that they were safe now and promised to protect them. Meanwhile, monsters started popping up all over the city, spreading fear. A giant spider chased after a group of civilians until a hero with a massive hammer showed up. He smashed the creature with a devastating move called Colossus Impact. Watching the chaos unfold, Kong Jin appeared, tired of just sitting around. He saw this as the perfect chance to make his move. The battle grew more intense as more monsters swarmed in and heroes fought to defend the city. Among them was the red-haired Guts, who launched a powerful strike against one of the creatures. As Guts fought, he wondered where all these monsters were coming from. He figured the IUPC must have planned it, taking advantage of the city while its main heroes were gone. But a surprise attack snapped him back to reality. Guts decided it didn't matter who was behind it. This was his chance to become a Class 1 hero, and he was going to take it. From a rooftop, the association's president watched the heroes mobilize, amazed at how fast they had gathered. Doha then explained that he had personally summoned the heroes who were outside the city. The president, shocked, asked how that was possible. Doha calmly replied that he had also dealt with the members at the IUPC base. At that moment, a figure appeared levitating above the building. Doha revealed he had sent the person he trusted most to handle the situation. That individual, Baek Chong, landed before them, admired the building, and commented on how fancy it was. Doha reluctantly admitted that Baek Chong was stronger than him. Baek Chong's arrival did not go unnoticed by the manager and the masochist who watched him closely. With his hands in his pockets, Baek Chong casually asked if everyone was enjoying the party, warning that he was about to disrupt things. Everyone was stunned by the unexpected hero's arrival, and all attention turned to him. Standing before the manager and the masochist was Baek Chong, the leader of Red Hall, Korea's most powerful guild. He was known as the strongest hero in the country. The tension in the air thickened just from his presence. Facing the manager, Baek asked if he was Maesong Lim. Lim demanded to know why someone like Baek was there, while the masochist simply commented that he was handsome. The manager warned Baek about the monster invasion spreading across Korea, stressing that a hero of his caliber should be on the front lines. But Baek said there was no need to worry. He was just asked to stop by, assuring them that other heroes were handling the monsters he left behind. His gaze then shifted to Ji-hyun, noting there was an unexpected visitor. Baek remarked that Doha had spoken a lot about Ji-hyun. He tilted his head and asked what brought him there, questioning if he was allied with Maesong Lim. Ji-hyun quickly denied it, realizing that Baek's mana was even more intense than Maesong's. Thinking about the failure of the Dice Guild heroes, Ji-hyun concluded the situation was not in his favor. Baek, however, said he expected something different, but that it no longer mattered. He began to cast an ability called Reverie, revealing his plan to take everyone there with him. As his magic flared, the manager murmured that he had only heard reports of Baek's true power. He realized with dread that Baek fully intended to eliminate them all. Desperate, the manager told Jerry to forget the mana crystals and run immediately. Baek, now holding a staff, assured them there was no escape. Everyone was already trapped in his magic, the palaces of dreams. The manager noticed they were no longer on the building, and Jerry commented that everything felt like a dream. Baek explained that this place was a virtual space he had created, and only he could decide who was allowed to leave. Ji-hyun remained on his knees, struggling to grasp how anyone could create something on this scale. It reminded him of Sylph's power, so he activated his analysis skill to learn more about Baek's magic. A window appeared explaining that Baek crafted dreams where truth and reality became one. When the crushing mana vanished, Ji-hyun got to his feet. He moved toward the manager, declaring he was done wasting time. But in an instant, Ji-hyun found himself teleported right next to Baek. Baek remarked on how fast Ji-hyun was to attack the moment he had a chance. Confused by the sudden shift, Ji-hyun was taunted by Baek, who asked if he really couldn't understand what just happened. Ji-hyun had simply been moved from one spot to another. Baek told him to look back at the manager, warning that if he hadn't interfered, Ji-hyun would be dead. That's when Ji-hyun saw them, monsters erupting from the manager's back. He stared, completely baffled, and wondered what those things were. The manager took off his glasses, admitting things weren't going according to plan. He said he always knew he'd have to face a hero this strong one day. Then he powered up his abilities and began to transform even more. He had sprouted so many tentacles, they became a blur, a direct result of pumping his body full of massive amounts of mana crystals. This transformation was the peak of all research done by Maesong Lim. Meanwhile, Baek's special technique, the Dream Palace, allowed him to use magic with no range limit. But even though it seemed perfect, the ability had a few major flaws. The first flaw is the massive amount of mana it drains. The Dream Palace uses so much power that most mages couldn't keep it up for even a minute. Baek, however, was different. His incredible mana reserves let him push past that limit, which is why he was known as Korea's greatest mage. But the ability had another critical weakness. The target had to be kept at a distance. If anyone got too close, the magical distortions would vanish, leaving Baek completely vulnerable and basically handing his opponent the win. To prevent this, Baek always kept his senses on high alert for any surprises. Despite this, Jerry slipped into his safe zone. It wasn't that Baek failed to notice her. He had just completely forgotten she existed. Now, Baek was wondering how she closed the distance so fast and what kind of skill she used. There was only one possible explanation. Baek glanced behind him, remarking that he never would have guessed she was an Azazian. Jerry seemed impressed, replying that she didn't expect him to know about her people. Baek then told her he was responsible for wiping out her entire race. 14 years prior, the Azazians had invaded Earth, sparking a war that reshaped the world. Baek explained that a team he belonged to had eliminated every last Azazian, or so they believed, until he found out she was still alive. With her dagger pressed against Baek's throat, Jerry listened to his shock. He asked how she survived and if she joined this group to get revenge. Jerry just laughed. She said she had no interest in avenging a failed race that couldn't even win a war. She then revealed her true goal, to fill the world with chaos, blood, and screams. Baek noted that sounded just like her kind, but Jerry warned that she couldn't let Maesong Lim die because her boss had big plans for him. Baek asked if her boss was still alive. Jerry just laughed, saying maybe he was, maybe he wasn't, and announced their little chat was over. She moved to finish Baek, but he told her he'd learned enough and didn't need to focus on her anymore. Just then, Baek warned that someone far more dangerous was about to show up, and Ji-hyun appeared. Ji-hyun saw that Baek's magic was useless against Jerry at this range, but that didn't stop him from attacking someone else. Ji-hyun unleashed his aura blade, and the resulting blast caused immense destruction. Baek told Ji-hyun he should have been more careful. Jae-hun shot back that he didn't hold back because he knew Baek could take it. Looking at the damage to the Dream Palace, Baek was impressed. He realized Jae-hun was powerful enough to take on Doha, and now he understood Doha's fascination with the man. Jae-hun then pointed out that Jerry was still alive. Baek wasn't surprised, noting that Azazians were tough to kill. Jerry got to her feet, said it was time to go, and tore open a spatial rift. Baek quickly warned Jae-hun not to attack or the rift might suck them in. He suspected Jerry understood how the Dream Palace functioned, but only 2 people were supposed to know his magic. Jerry announced she had to leave, but promised they'd meet again. She vanished through the portal, and Jae-hun was frustrated she got away. Baek, however, said they'd gained valuable intel and that there were still Azazians out there. He figured they were working with the IUPC to plunge the world back into chaos, threatening the entire planet. Ji-hyun asked if the IUPC really broke the treaty and started the revolt. Baek said he couldn't talk about it right now. He had to get to Seoul and he was taking Ji-hyun with him. When Ji-hyun mentioned that Bang and Psy who were still inside, Bak promised that Red Hall reinforcements were on their way. Meanwhile in Seoul, the city was in chaos from a monster invasion. A man, the IUPC's janitor, was hiding behind a car wondering where all these creatures came from. He called Si-hoo, asking where she was and why she'd abandoned him. Si-hoo told him monsters were attacking civilian zones and that he needed to hide until heroes showed up. Just then, a monster loomed up right behind him. Suddenly, someone stepped in and took the monster down, remarking that Korea had gone crazy in his absence. Si-hoo knew that voice. It was her father, Kim Jong-un, a former Class 3 hero of Korea. And so, a portal tore open in the sky, its bright light warping the air around it. Bak and Ji-hun stumbled out, clearly shaken by the trip. Bak straightened himself up, relieved, and announced that they had made it. But Ji-hun, pale and shaking, couldn't stop himself from getting sick the second his feet hit solid ground. Bak watched this and chuckled, teasing Ji-hun for looking so green. He said the trip wasn't that bad, like it was just another day for him. Still recovering, Ji-hun shot him an irritated look and snapped that the experience was awful. He said it felt like his body had been turned inside out, which only made Baek laugh harder. Once he finally got himself together, Ji-hun realized something was wrong. The air felt heavy and oppressive, and in the distance, the city's buildings were nothing but ruins. Jae-hyun turned to Baek and asked where they were. With his arms crossed, Baek surveyed the ruined city and explained grimly that this was Seoul. It was a destroyed version of the city, a direct result of the IEPC's actions. Jae-hyun's expression hardened instantly. Anger filled his voice as he demanded to know why anyone would do this. What could possibly justify such destruction? Bak, though just as furious, seemed more measured. He noted that the reports hadn't prepared him for how bad it was. Judging by the state of things, Bak warned they might run into creatures and would need to stay alert. Changing the topic, Baek asked if Jae-who knew anything about the Hero Association's current status. He suggested they should find Doha at the Dice Guild to get information and make a plan. Jae-hun agreed, his mind on high alert. His skill window had already told him he would meet someone important here, so he remained on guard. As if summoned by the thought, a voice called out from behind them. It was Doha who greeted them and said Jae-gun had already explained everything. Doha added that they weren't the only ones he was expecting, and soon more people began to arrive. Jun Kong from the Warriors Guild and Na Zeong from the Snowball Guild appeared a moment later. Jun Kong complained about the delay, but Na Zeong seemed more interested, asking if the man with them was Ji-hyun. Baek, ever the optimist, declared that at least they wouldn't have to go looking for the guilds now. Ji-hyun, however, knew how significant this meeting was. They were standing before the leaders of the Warriors and Snowball Guilds known as the best heroes in Korea. He thought about the seriousness of the situation and what would come next. Then Doha's assistant appeared, looking relieved to see him safe. She immediately asked about Bang and the squad, her voice tight with concern. Jae-hun explained that when he arrived, most of them were already dead. Only Bang was alive, but he was seriously injured and being taken for treatment by Red Hall. The assistant was in disbelief, asking how such a thing could have happened. Before Jae-hun could reply, an annoyed Doha stepped in. He demanded that Baek explain the situation. With a somber expression, Baek said he regretted not arriving sooner to save more of them. Despite the tragedy, he revealed their efforts were not a total loss. They had found valuable information about the IUPC that could change everything. Baek's next words caused a shocked silence to fall over the group. The Azazians were still alive. Baek explained that he had fought an Azazian named Jerry whose concealment skill made her completely invisible. Jerry also confirmed that their leader, who everyone thought was dead, was in fact still alive. Doha was floored by this revelation, while the other leaders reacted with outrage and disbelief. The tension in the room grew thick as the leaders started to argue, bringing up past events they had all sworn to forget. Doha then threatened Baek, demanding to know if he was absolutely certain about his claims. Both men began to release their auras, making the air crackle with pressure. Jae-hun watched the scene, wondering why there was so much conflict. His skill had predicted an unexpected encounter, but nothing had happened yet. That was when Guts, a man with red hair, appeared. Juno pointed at him, remarking that they were now facing the 6 greatest guild leaders. Guts, annoyed, scolded his subordinate for showing herself in front of rank 1 heroes. She, however, was just grateful to be there. Even with the situation being so chaotic, Guts declared that the Curious Guild would have to prove its worth against the major guilds sooner or later. Meanwhile, his subordinates argued among themselves. One of them pointed at Jae-hun, who was interacting with the guild leaders. Seeing Jae-hun brought back bitter memories for Guts, who recalled kicking him out of the guild on orders from his superiors. He had told Jae-hun it was for his own safety, but the real reason was much crueler. When confronted, Jae-hun had simply asked for the truth. Guts finally admitted that he considered Jae-hun useless and that his constant meddling was hurting the squad. Jae-hun calmly thanked him for his honesty and accepted the expulsion. Before walking away, he gave Guts one last piece of advice, telling him he would never reach rank 1 no matter how hard he tried. These words made Guts furious, and he started cursing Jae-hun. Just then, someone else arrived asking for him. It was Sihu's father who said he needed to find Jae-hun to discuss something important. After the tense discussion between the 6 generals of the great guilds, the scene changes. We now see people from the Red Hall arriving on site, armed with rifles. They wait, ready for whatever might happen, though they don't know what to expect. A few moments later, one of them announces they found the person they were looking for. The target is a survivor from the Dice Guild. The leader orders his men to take the target safely. He then starts to wonder where the other person they were searching for is. He asks if there wasn't supposed to be a woman with him, questioning her whereabouts. Just then, magical threads shot out and trapped all 3 of them. As they tried to figure out what was happening, one of the men told the others to stay calm. He explained it was just a weak binding spell. He said their draining armor would make it a non-issue, but he couldn't help but feel the ability was very familiar. That's when Sai-ho appeared, demanding to know who they were and if the IUPC had sent them. One of the captured men, shocked, called out Sai-ho by name. She immediately asked how he knew who she was. In response, the man removed his helmet to reveal his face. He said he was surprised to find that their rescue target was none other than Sai-ho herself. He introduced himself as Yenjing and reminded her they had studied together at the Hero Academy. The scene then shifts to Guts, Meso-ing, and Siho's father. Guts confronts the older man, asking what a civilian is doing there. The man replied that he was just a civilian passing through and mentioned they had been talking about Jae-hun. Guts grew suspicious, questioning how he could be a civilian when the city had been closed for hours. He demanded the man explain his presence in a war zone and reveal his true identity. Siho's father remarked that Guts was a bit aggressive, but admitted he had a point. He then explained that he had no documents to prove who he was. At that moment, the cleaner from the Epic Guild stepped in. He asked everyone to wait, promising he would explain everything. He revealed that he manages Mangtang, a monster cleaning service partnered with the Epic Guild. Then he introduced himself as Ji-han Kim, the guild master's father. Sem Lim, recognizing him, said it was no surprise they looked so familiar. Juno asked if she knew who he was. Sem Lim replied that he was an absolute legend among mages. She explained that he was a hero who helped win the battle 10 years ago, but he later withdrew from the hero world to focus on his research. Sem Lim added that his name was known by every mage. A little flustered, Ji-han Kim admitted that while some details were exaggerated, the story was mostly true. SM Lim then bowed respectfully and asked for his autograph, calling it a great honor. The official handling Guts equipment said that was all the proof he needed to believe Ji-han. Annoyed, Guts wondered why anyone would even want to talk to someone so famous. The tension thickened when Baek appeared out of nowhere. He remarked that Guts' deadly glare gave him chills, and warned him he'd get wrinkles if he kept it up. Baek's sudden arrival shocked everyone. A confused Guts asked how Beck had shown up without anyone sensing his presence. Beck explained he'd been watching from a distance and saw they were just novice heroes from the Kiro Guild. He then turned to Jihan Kim and demanded to know what he was doing in Korea. Jihan greeted him saying it had been a long time. With a suspicious glare, Beck noted that Jihan hadn't been in Korea for years, yet showed up right as the country was in trouble. Jihan explained he was there to handle family matters and hoped Beck would understand. Jihan revealed it was the anniversary of his wife's death, and he had come to commemorate it with Sihao. Still wary, Beck used an ability and instantly appeared beside Jihan, calling him an idiot for not telling him sooner. The others could only stare, wondering what just happened. Beck's tone softened as he said it had been too long, and invited Jihan for a drink once things were settled. Jihan politely declined, saying he wouldn't have the time. Just then, one of the cleaners was called over, and he recognized the voice. He ran toward Jihan, exclaiming that it had been years. A surprised Jihan asked what he was doing there. Jihan then noticed Guts, whose real name was Hyun Tae Kim. Guts just muttered something under his breath. Jihan observed that everyone present seemed to be fighting the city's monsters. He walked up to Guts and greeted him, noting it had been a while. He also mentioned seeing Guts' platoon helping defend the city. Guts sneered, calling Ji-hoon a little brat and telling him to stop acting like he was on the same level as the S-rank heroes. Guts made it clear he saw right through Ji-hoon's attempts to cling to the top-ranked heroes. He declared that Ji-hoon would never reach that rank and needed to stop dreaming. Ji-hoon shot back that Guts hadn't changed a bit since he left the platoon, still as arrogant as a child. Then Ji-hoon taunted him saying Guts was the one who would never reach rank 1, no matter how hard he tried. Enraged, Guts lunged at Ji-hoon, calling him a piece of shit. But just then, Doha appeared and grabbed Guts by the head, demanding to know what he was doing. Looking things over, Doha remarked that he was surprised Guts could be provoked so easily. Doha then asked Ji-hoon how he put up with cowering for so long. Ji-hoon simply thanked Doha for stepping in. Guts, still fuming, couldn't believe how someone could look down on him like he was nothing. Guts swore he would make Ji-hoon pay for the humiliation. Just then, Mi Jin-ho greeted a Mr. Kim, noting it had been a long time. Mi Jin-ho mentioned how they all used to be novices, but now they were all important guild leaders in Korea. Doha cut in, saying this was not the time to get nostalgic. Ji-hoon's father agreed, explaining that he had been watching the mana signals. He could tell the Azazians were finally starting to make their move. Ji-hoon's father revealed he had been tracking their mana all over Japan, and Korea was not their only target. He warned that the entire world was getting ready for the Azazians' return, putting everyone on high alert. In a sad voice, Bak asked if they still did not believe what he had said. Jihin's father ignored the question, turning instead to Jihin and asking if he was truly him. Ji-hoon confirmed his identity. Instantly, an information window popped up in front of him. It said he had found the person he was looking for, Ji-hoon's father. Ji-hoon wondered to himself why his power had led him to this man. Ji-hoon's father then explained that Ji-hoon had already filled him in on some of the details, and he thanked the group for stopping the IUPC's plans. He mentioned there was a lot to discuss, but it could wait. He then told Ji-hoon and Si-hoon to stay out of what was coming next. Confused, Ji-hoon asked him why. Si-hoon's father revealed the truth. The Azazians were targeting Sylph and his daughter, Si-hoon. The scene suddenly shifted to a helicopter appearing in the distance. A voice came over a speaker, announcing their arrival and telling everyone to prepare for landing.